Chapter 1169, Bathing Beauties. The sorrowless old man seemed to have had a clear view of the situation, and that was reflected in his painting as well. Despite being in the world of a painting, the area where Kong Shi's silhouette was located was depicted in elaborate detail. Very soon, Zhang Xian arrived at the destination. Before him stood a massive rift with white rocks scattered around the area. The rock seemed to be made of a rare material that he had never seen before. Zhang Xian was just about to enter the rift to see what was within when Kong Shi's silhouette suddenly wavered, and with a light whoosh, he vanished without a trace. Damn it! Zhang Xian's face darkened. He had thought that Kong Shi's silhouette would at least be able to last a little longer, but it seemed like he had misjudged the situation. Logically speaking, the silhouette should have been able to sustain itself for a much longer period of time, but the earlier forceful insertion of a door into the painting had destroyed its artistic conception, resulting in the erosion of its evoking vividness quality. Forget it, at least I know about this rift. Now, I just have to figure out where this mountain is located. Once he found out where the mountain was, he would just have to find the rift and venture into it to take a look himself. There should not be many similar mountain ranges in the world, so it would not be too difficult to find it. Just as Zhang Xian was about to fully enchant the spirit and leave the area, a thought suddenly came to his mind. Thinking about it, the copper-masked figure seems to be a little too fixated on destroying the seal. No matter what, this is still an 8th level painting. It is bizarre that he is going to the extent of destroying an 8th level painting just to pursue something as elusive as this. I wonder, is it possible that he knows that Kong Shi's silhouette is beneath the clouds? In the first place, the copper-masked figure's desire to conceal his identity was a little suspicious in itself. On top of that, he would go to the extent of destroying such a valuable historical work just to find out what lay beneath the seal. Wasn't he afraid that he would destroy a treasure just to obtain something insignificant in return? Did he already know for certain that what lay beneath the clouds was something significant? Regardless, if he sees that Kong Shi's silhouette has vanished after the seal is released, he will surely be suspicious about the matter. Zhang Xian fell into deep thought. He could not tell how powerful the copper-masked figure was at the moment, but considering how he dared to act arrogantly before guild leader Mu and the others, it was very likely that he was a powerful expert. If the other party were to learn that he had accidentally caused Kong Shi's silhouette to dissipate, would the other party exact vengeance on him for the matter? Considering that this is a matter related to Kong Shi, it's best for as few people to know about it as possible. It was best to take caution with anything relating to Kong Shi, or else, he could very well end up in the same plight as the sorrowless old man. Since that's the case, perhaps I should make some alterations myself. Zhang Xian pondered for a moment before creating a brush with his consciousness. He leaped into the air and began to paint. At this point, he had no choice but to do this in order to avoid trouble. It did not take too long for him to finish his painting, and he heaved a sigh of relief. He sealed the painting that he had just created where Kong Shi had appeared earlier before returning to the clouds to finish the enchantment process. Hong Long. As soon as he lit up the final spark, his surroundings began to tremble intensely. Knowing that he had succeeded in enchanting the spirit, he swiftly retracted his consciousness out of the painting through the door and back into his body. Who? Exhaling a mouthful of turbid air, Zhang Xian opened his eyes once more. Seeing that Zhang Xian had come to, the copper-masked figure quickly rushed forward and asked anxiously, "How is it?" With a pale face and a feeble voice, Zhang Xian replied, "It was difficult, but I managed to successfully pull it off. However, I seem to have overexerted myself in the midst of doing so. If there were 100 concentrated high-tier spirit stones before me at this moment, I would be able to recover a little." 100 concentrated high-tier spirit stones? The mouth of the copper-masked figure twitched upon hearing those words. "I don't have that, but if you have truly helped me unseal the painting, I'll surely compensate you fairly." Even the Qingyuan Empire royal family only had a couple of concentrated high-tier spirit stones in their hands, so how did this fellow manage to ask for 100 of them so unabashedly? On the other hand, hearing that the copper-masked figure did not have any concentrated high-tier spirit stones with him, Zhang Xian sighed in disappointment. Shaking his head, he walked up to the painting and tapped it lightly. "Wake up." "Who?" Shortly after those words were spoken, the painting suddenly moved. It arched itself backward, as if a person stretching after waking from a long slumber. He actually managed to enchant the entire painting. The mouths of the crowd twitched upon seeing this sight. After stretching its back, the painting seemed to slowly scan its surroundings warily before abruptly dashing out. "Humph, where do you think you are going?" With a harumph, the copper-masked figure raised his hand, and the surrounding space was immediately sealed. Half-leaving Aperture Realm. Zhang Xian was able to tell the other party's cultivation as soon as the other party made a move. The other party was a half-leaving Aperture Realm expert. It was no wonder the other party dared to snub the many guild leaders and powerful figures gathered within the hall. Upon realizing that its escape route had been sealed, the painting could only return indignantly. "Allow me to negotiate with it," Zhang Xian said. He walked toward the painting and stretched a finger toward it. As the person who had enchanted the painting's spirit, there was a special intimacy between them. As such, the painting did not avoid Zhang Xian's finger. Heaving a sigh of relief, Zhang Xian relayed a thought to it. "Wang." Upon understanding Zhang Xian's intentions, the painting suddenly shook itself, and the clouds shrouding the mountain range abruptly shuddered, as if a tornado was forming within them. The clouds gradually thinned, revealing patches of the world that lay beneath. "It's working." Upon seeing this sight, the eyes of the copper-masked figure and the crowd in the hall lit up in excitement. This was the first time that they had seen such a seal, and to witness it being deciphered right before their eyes, even the calmest of them all could not suppress their agitation any longer. "Jai. Jai." As the painting continued shaking itself vigorously, the white clouds on it shuddered more and more vigorously. Before long, unable to withstand the intense shaking, it finally flew off the canvas and fell with a loud splat onto the ground. Seeing that the seal had finally been removed, everyone quickly focused their gazes on the painting, curious to see lay beneath. Even Wu Shi could not help but pay close attention to the painting at this moment. He wanted to see what it was that would leave the copper-masked figure so desperate to decipher the painting. However, what lay beneath the clouds consisted only of lush greenery and glistening lakes. As beautiful as they were, there was nothing particularly noteworthy about them as compared to the rest of the painting. "Wait a moment. What's that?" Someone amid the crowd suddenly shouted at this moment, and everyone quickly turned their gazes over once more. By a rift near the center of the mountain, surrounded by countless bizarrely shaped stones, a natural hot spring could be seen. Several beautiful silhouettes were currently soaking in it delightfully. Too far away, those beautiful silhouettes were extremely blurred. Nevertheless, with but a glance, it was apparent that they were extraordinary beauties. The crowd had been wondering what kind of wondrous artifact or astounding secret would be hidden so securely beneath the clouds. Who would have thought it was a group of beautiful ladies bathing? They could not help but freeze on the spot. It was too unexpected. "I get it." The sorrowless old man must have stumbled upon a group of bathing ladies while he was venturing through the mountain range, and in a moment of inspiration, he swiftly painted the scenery before him. However, he soon realized that it was extremely disrespectful of him to peek on others while they were bathing, and ashamed by that encounter, he decided to seal away a portion of his painting. "I was wondering why the sorrowless old man would go through so much trouble to put a seal on it and ruin the artistic conception of his masterpiece. So, this is the true reason behind it. Ha ha ha, to be able to paint those bathing beauties with such amazing semblance, the sorrowless old man is indeed a passionate individual." At this point, the crowd could not help but burst into laughter. They had thought that there was bound to be some kind of earth-shattering secret hidden within the painting, considering the effort that the sorrowless old man had put into sealing it away, but surprisingly, what he was trying to conceal was just a dark history. Impossible. This can't be. the copper-masked figure exclaimed in disbelief. He had put in so much effort to acquire and decipher the painting, and yet, it turned out to be just a group of ladies bathing? The vast difference between reality and his expectations left him feeling as if his mind would descend into insanity at any moment. There must be another seal within the painting, right? There's no doubt about it, there must be one. The agitated copper-masked figure hurriedly rushed up to the painting and extended the consciousness of his powerful primordial spirit into the painting, wanting to see what had happened. Who? Feeling the immense pressure from the elder before him, the painting leaped in shock. He quickly hid himself behind Zhang Xian fearfully. Tell me. Is there still a seal within the painting? The eyes of the copper-masked figure turned crimson, and a powerful soul reverberation rippled from his primordial spirit. Enough. Look at how frightened little painting over here is. Zhang Xian bellowed as he gently consoled the 8th-level painting. After which, he turned back to the crowd and said, just as everyone has seen, the secret lying beneath the seal is a group of bathing beauties. It seems like the sorrowless old man was peeking on others bathing, and unable to find a way to vent his emotions, he decided to pick up his brush instead. While it may seem a little dishonorable, it is perfectly normal for all humans to feel inherently attracted to beautiful individuals. It's actually no big deal at all, so you need not get so agitated. Noting the other party's attitude, it was clear that he knew what actually lay beneath the painting. Facing such a situation, he could not help but heave a sigh of relief for his wise decision back then. If he had not added in the hot spring of beautiful ladies to fill the void, he might have very well given himself away. Pardon me, I was too reckless. Hearing those words, the copper-masked figure took a deep breath and swiftly calmed himself down. After which, he clasped his fist and bowed. Ever since I discovered the presence of the seal, I have been wanting to find out what lay beneath it. Even though the result turned out to be a disappointment for me, I'm still grateful to you all for helping me resolve this lingering regret. Right after saying those words, he flicked his wrist, and a pile of high-tier spirit stones appeared right before him. Even from a rough estimation, there had to be at least 12,000 within the pile. These spirit stones are a token of appreciation for your help. Please, feel free to take them. After saying those words, the copper-masked figure turned to Zhang Xian. Zhang Shi, I am full of admiration for the astounding mastery you have achieved in the way of painting despite your young age. Here is a book left behind by the sorrowless old man, named the 10 Deciphers of Painting. Detailed within it are the various painting techniques that he is the most skilled in. I hope that this will prove useful to you. After saying those words, he swiftly grasped forward and retrieved the painting before clasping his fist. I'll be taking my leave now. Farewell. Then, without further ado, he stood up and rushed out. In the blink of an eye, he had already vanished from everyone's sight. From the looks of it, it seemed like he feared that others would go after him for the treasure that he possessed, so there was not the slightest hesitation in his movements at all. Looking at the book in his hands, Zhang Xian could not help but fall speechless. The other party had mentioned earlier that he would be handsomely rewarded if he were to decipher the seal, but this. What the heck was this? He could not help but feel a little choked up within. Is that really, the 10 Deciphers of Painting? Zhang Shi, it might be a little presumptuous for me to ask this of you, but will you sell the book to our painter guild? In contrast to Zhang Xian's speechless expression, by his side, guild leader Meng's gleaming eyes were completely fixated on the inconspicuous book that Zhang Xian held in his hands. The sorrowless old man was the most formidable painter from the Qingyuan Empire. While he had only lived for a short 300 years, he had made great contributions to the Painter Guild, bringing it an era of prosperity. Of the heritage that he had left behind to the Painter Guild, there was one that stood out, the 10 Deciphers of Painting. It was a painting manual that he had begun working on in his later years. However, he had gone missing before he could finish the book, and mysteriously, the book had vanished from the surface of the world as well. The Painter Guild had devoted great resources into finding it, but there was not the slightest clue to be found. Who could have predicted that it would be in the hands of the copper-masked figure, and he would even give it to Zhang Shi for free? You wish to buy the book? Zhang Xian glanced at the book in his hand and instantaneously recorded its contents into the Library of Heaven's Path. After which, he tossed it over generously and said, "Since you want it, I'll give it to you." Is this really all right?" stammered guild leader Meng as he caught the book with his trembling hands. "Zhang Shi, allow me to thank you on behalf of the entire Painter Guild. You are truly generous to give away a book that is easily worth 50 concentrated high-tier spirit stones just like that. I am impressed." "What did you say? 50 concentrated high-tier spirit stones?" Zhang Xian felt as if the world was spinning around him. "Indeed," guild leader Meng replied. "Pardon me, but I won't be giving you the 10 deciphers of painting anymore." Zhang Xian quickly snatched back the book from guild leader Meng's hands. "Pay up." Meng Chong. The crowd. Chapter 1170, A Visit in the Night 1. In the end, guild leader Meng did not pay the 50 concentrated high-tier spirit stones. After all, there was no way he could fork out that much money. After promising to bring Zhang Xian around the Painter Guild, he quickly snatched the book back and hid it in his storage ring. Zhang Xian could not help but lament how the noble values of the past were gradually eroding with time. "Zhang Shi, we didn't contribute much to the unsealing of the painting, so we won't be accepting any of the high-tier spirit stones here," guild leader Mu said as he passed over a storage ring filled with the high-tier spirit stones that the copper-masked figure had left behind. He had gathered everyone here today in hopes of combining the wits of the masses to decipher the secret of the painting, but they had ended up contributed nothing at all. The case ended up being resolved by the sole efforts of the young man before him. While the high-tier spirit stones were the compensation that the copper-masked figure had offered to all of them, they were too embarrassed to accept any. "All right then." Zhang Xian initially refused it, but seeing that the crowd was unwilling to accept the high-tier spirit stones, he could only reluctantly take it. Actually, these spirit stones were not of much value to him. However, considering that he could possibly exchange them for concentrated high-tier spirit stones in the future, he chose to take them. At this point, guild leader Mu suddenly stepped forward and remarked, "Zhang Shi's capability in appraising is truly exceptional. If I'm not mistaken, you are an appraiser, right?" Considering how the other party had been able to sharply determine the year in which the painting had been created and deduce the solution to deciphering the seal through analyzing its creation method, there was no doubt that he was a skilled appraiser as well. Zhang Xian nodded. "That's right. I'm a 5-star appraiser at the moment. Actually, I was intending to pay the appraiser hall a visit to take the 7-star examination, but I haven't yet found the time to do so. With eyes as sharp as yours, there's no need for you to take the examination. I'll apply for a 7-star appraiser emblem on your behalf straight afterward," guild leader Mu replied with a smile. At this point, he could see why even a prestigious figure like Wu Shi would regard the other party as his brother. With the other party's capability, it was clear that he would clear the examination perfectly, so there was no need to waste their time on such formalities. Guild leader Meng also hurriedly stepped forward and said, "I'll apply for a 7-star painter emblem on your behalf as well." Judging just from the suspended imagery that the other party had performed earlier, it was apparent that the other party's proficiency in painting was far above his. Even 7-star pinnacle painters would struggle to be a match for him. Naturally, he was more than qualified to be promoted straight to 7-star. "Thank you." Zhang Xian heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed like his trip here was not wasted. Not only did he manage to bring his painting up to the level of 7-star pinnacle, he had even managed to obtain 2 7-star emblems simultaneously. With this, he had finally gathered the supporting occupations required for his promotion to 7-star master teacher. Once all the emblems arrived, he would be qualified to apply for the nomination slot to the Sanctum of Sages. "Guild leader Mu, may I know where the library of the appraiser hall is located?" Zhang Xian asked with a polite smile. "If it's possible, I would like to take a look at your books." Since he had already come to the appraiser hall, it would be good to take this opportunity to collect all their books into the library of Heaven's Path as well. Of course, of course. Guild leader Mu nodded. That isn't a problem at all. He was just about to lead the way forward when a conflicted voice sounded. Teacher, Zhang Shi. May I trouble the both of you to help resolve this thing first? It was only upon hearing the voice that the duo suddenly recalled that there was still a certain figure whose head was blooming durians. Over the past hour, Zhang Jiuxiao had flourished well. Another 9 durians, along with a dense congregation of lush leaves, had sprouted on his head, and the tail behind him had grown longer and more bulky, reminiscent of a valiant tiger. Give me a moment. Zhang Xian pondered briefly before whipping out a brush and penning down a prescription. He passed the prescription over and said, "Concoct the medicine according to the way I have stated and consume it. It should be able to destroy the spirit within your body. The process will be a little painful, but you must endure it." Since the other party was unwilling to bear his soul open to him, Zhang Xian could only resort to poison in order to deal with the spirit. It was fortunate that he had gotten a close glimpse of the spirit earlier when he entered the painting, so he knew what kind of poison had to be concocted in order to kill it. The poison that Zhang Xian had prescribed was a relatively simple one, such that even ordinary cultivators would be able to concoct it. However, it was extremely damaging to the body, dealing excruciating pain to those who consumed it. Whether Zhang Jiuxiao would be able to endure the pain or not would be dependent on him. If Zhang Jiuxiao felt that the poison was too dangerous, he could always choose to keep his head of durians. In any case, that would only affect his appearance, it would not make too much of a difference to his physical functions. In fact, his transformation into a plant might even enhance certain functions of his. Considering the fact that the other party was from the clan of his love rival, there was really no reason for Zhang Xian to do this for the other party. It was already a great mercy that he had offered this much help in the first place. Thank you. Zhang Jiuxiao took the prescription with a conflicted expression on his face. Nevertheless, he still bowed in gratitude. After dealing with this matter, Zhang Xian and Wu Shi bade everyone else farewell before following guild leader Mu to the library of the appraiser hall. Appraisers were valued for their knowledge. In order to be a good appraiser, one had to have some understanding of everything, be it knowledge on other occupations, history, geography. Investigating the background of an artifact was the foundation to determining the authenticity of a certain artifact. As such, there were several dozen million books within the library of the appraiser hall. Walking between the shelves, it took Zhang Xian 4 whole hours before he managed to collect everything. By the time he was done, it was already late at night. He swiftly compiled the 6-star and 7-star Heaven's Path appraising art and internalized them. Before long, his understanding of appraising had reached the level of 7-star pinnacle. Even without the Library of Heaven's Path or the Eye of Insight, he was able to easily discern most artifacts of Saint Intermediate tier and below without any errors. Returning from the Library of Heaven's Path, he began reflecting on what had happened earlier. This was the first time he had come to an appraisal convention, and it had truly have been a fruitful trip. Not only had he managed to advance his knowledge to the level of a 7-star appraiser and painter and obtain the 7-star emblems of those 2 occupations, more importantly, he had learned that Kong Shi's silhouette had once appeared on the peak of a mountain. If there was a chance in the future, he should really investigate this matter. Perhaps, he might be able to uncover something special. Zhang Shi. As soon as Zhang Xian walked out of the library, he saw guild leader Mu walking toward him. Even though it was the middle of the night, it seemed like the other party had not gone to rest yet. There was a young man following behind guild leader Mu with a slightly conflicted look on his face, Zhang Jiuxiao. The durian head and tail that had been on Zhang Jiuxiao's body a few hours ago had vanished without a trace, but in place of that, his face and body were slightly swollen. Most likely, that was the after effect of consuming the poison. The swelling looked a little glaring, but it would swiftly fade after some rest. After trading some pleasantries, Zhang Xian clasped his fist and took his leave. A starry night sky welcomed him as he stood outside the appraiser hall. It felt as if someone had used a needle to pierce through the night sky, leaving behind innumerable holes for light to pass through. The bustling streets from a moment ago had become a little cold, with nary a person in sight. Stretching his back lazily, Zhang Xian began making his way toward the Combat Master Hall. But before he could get very far, goosebumps suddenly rose all over his body. He could clearly sense that someone was following him, but regardless of whether he used his spiritual perception or his eyes, he was unable to find the other party. Who? Sensing that the person following him was a dangerous individual, possessing strength far beyond him, he swiftly executed the Heaven's Path movement art and dashed forward. In a single breath, he flitted over a distance of 10 kilometers. But despite that, he was still unable to shake off the feeling of being eyed. Anxious, he turned around and saw a black-robed man standing not too far away. For the other party to be able to catch up even though he had pushed his Heaven's Path movement art to its very limit, not to mention the fact that the other party was able to prevent even his spiritual perception from noticing the other party, there was no doubt that the black-robed man standing before him was a true expert. This was the very first time Zhang Xian had encountered this situation, and it left cold sweat drenching his back. Nevertheless, he did not panic. He began assessing the figure before him carefully. It was not possible to see the face beneath the other party's black robe, but his very presence seemed to meld into the essence of the world itself, leaving him with an impression that the other party would vanish at any moment. Zhang Xian activated his eye of insight to get a closer look of the other party, but he was unable to discern the other party's cultivation at all. In other words, the other party wielded strength beyond the leaving aperture realm Hall Master Xing, or perhaps, beyond the leaving aperture realm even. When did such an expert appear in Qingyuan City? There's no need for you to be so wary around me. If I wanted to kill you, you would have long been killed. It was an extremely deep and resounding voice. As nervous as Zhang Xian was, he knew that there was no way he would be able to escape if the other party wanted to kill him. Thus, he clasped his fist politely and replied, "Elder, you were waiting for me?" It was shortly after leaving the appraiser hall that he had sensed that the other party was following him, which meant that the other party had probably been waiting for him. But instead of answering his question, the black-robed man placed his hands behind his back and said, "To be able to sense me so swiftly even though I only leaked out a hint of an aura, it seems like you are quite a talented individual. I have been following you since sunset, and I saw how you managed to decipher the seal on the painting. Despite your young age, you have quite a keen pair of eyes. Not bad. You have been here since sunset?" Zhang Xian narrowed his eyes in alarm. He had been paying close attention to his surroundings all this while due to the happenings with King Zhongqing earlier in the day, and yet, despite his enhanced wariness, he had still been oblivious to the fact that the other party had been following him. This was too frightening. "If I may ask, I would like to inquire why Elder has been following me all night." At the same time, Zhang Xian secretly activated his library of Heaven's Path, but no book was compiled. Until the other party executed a battle technique, he would be unable to discern the other party's background. "It's nothing much, I just want to know if you have the qualification and capability for what you seek." The black-robed man harumphed as he finally raised his head, revealing the appearance of an old man in his 60s. It was a foreign face. Zhang Xian was certain that he had never seen the other party before. Pang! In the next moment, Zhang Xian suddenly felt a choking sensation in his chest, as if some kind of force had struck him. At the same time, the space before him suddenly compressed together, as if someone was forcefully denting it, trapping him in place. As if a caged beast, no matter how he struggled, he was unable to free himself. This. Zhang Xian's eyes narrowed further and further. The fact that the Library of Heaven's Path had not compiled a book meant that the other party had not executed a battle technique. And yet, the other party was still able to wield such strength, rendering him completely helpless. Just how strong could the other party be? Saint 5 Dan Pinnacle. 6 Dan. Or was it 7 Dan? In any case, the other party was a figure whom he could not stand a chance against at this moment. Despite knowing the deep danger he was in, Zhang Xian knew that the more threatening a situation was, the more he should not panic. Thus, driving his soul depth, he began speaking with a unique aura in his voice. Elder, if you are only seeking me to display your strength, there's really no need for you to do so. I am a mere Saint Tu Dan cultivator. I won't understand it no matter what you show me. The gap between him and the other party was simply too great. The only thing he had that could possibly match the other party was his exceptional soul depth. If he could leave the other party in a short trance, he might be able to buy sufficient time to flee from this situation. However, seeing through Zhang Xian as if he was transparent, the black-robed elder chuckled softly. Your soul depth is not too bad, but you're still a little lacking to be using impartation of heaven's will on me. Those words immediately sent chills down Zhang Xian's spine. With an earnest smile on his face, he swiftly waved his hand and said, Elder, how could I dare do something as rude as that? It is a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. To be able to see through his impartation of heaven's will, it seemed like the other party's soul depth was beyond his as well. It was fortunate that he had not recklessly forced his way through. Otherwise, the other party's retaliation could very well have cost him his life. You do have some wits, but it's meaningless against me, the black-robed elder replied indifferently. How could I dare flaunt my little wits before you? Elder, your ability to track me without catching my notice and seal my movements so easily must mean that your soul depth has reached a level far beyond my imagination. If I may request, could you display a battle technique for me? At this point, Zhang Xian shook his head and sighed. I have come from a humble place, and I have never met a person as strong as you. I truly respect experts like you, and if you could just accede to this request of mine, my life would be truly fulfilled. Chapter 1171, A Visit in the Night 2, the black-robed elder harumphed coldly. Humph, you do have quite a glib tongue. Do you take me as one of those naive, young ladies who fall for your words easily? Naive, young ladies. Falling for my words. Zhang Xian hurriedly waved his hands earnestly, denying the accusation. At the same time, an inconspicuous frown surfaced on his head. He could vaguely feel that the black-robed elder was referring to something with his words, but he had always conducted himself properly, never getting involved with any women. What could the other party possibly be getting at? If others were to hear that, they might just think that he was a playboy. I will just get straight to the point with you. With his hands behind his back, the elder slowly closed in on Zhang Xian. In that instant, Zhang Xian felt as if a massive mountain was slowly making its way toward him, and the immense pressure that he felt seemed to sap the air from his lungs. This pressure weighed on both his mind and his body, rendering him completely powerless. It was apparent that the other party wanted him to know the gap between them and force him to submit. Humph. With narrowed eyes, Zhang Xian drove his heaven's path Shinqi, and the pressure on him alleviated significantly. As powerful as the other party was, there was no presence more imposing than the heavens. Interesting. Seeing that the other party was able to endure his pressure so easily, an interested gleam surfaced in the eyes of the black-robed elder. To be able to endure my pressure so easily, you must have some kind of formidable artifact on you. It seems like you have quite a doting teacher there. I am my teacher's only direct disciple, so he does treat me quite well, Zhang Xian replied. The other party was too fearsome. With his current strength, he stood no chance at all. Even escape seemed unlikely at this point. Thus, he could only place his hopes in his teacher, Yang Xian, to deter the other party from doing anything overboard. The black-robed elder looked at him and asked, May I know whom your teacher is? Zhang Xian nodded. My teacher goes by the name of Yang Xian. Upon hearing the name, the black-robed elder's eyes narrowed menacingly, and he harumphed coldly. Yang Xian. Young man, I still have a rather favorable impression of you. Don't lose it by lying. Suddenly, Zhang Xian suddenly felt as if he was standing above a sinkhole and an unknown power would consume him at any moment. Gritting his teeth to withstand the devastating might crushing him, Zhang Xian asked, lying? Elder, why would you say such words? I have met Yang Shi once, and he has already long retired from worldly affairs. As far as I know, he has never accepted any students, and yet, you say that you are his student? Are you honestly expecting me to believe such words? The black-robed elder said with a threatening edge in his voice. You have met Yang Xian. Zhang Xian's eyebrows shot up in alarm, and for a moment, he found himself in a daze. Yang Xian was a name that he came up with spontaneously back then. In other words, it was a fictional character that he had fabricated, and yet, the black-robed elder was saying that he had met Yang Xian? It couldn't be that there was really a master teacher going by the name of Yang Xian in the world who coincidentally wielded unfathomable strength as well, could there? That would be too much of a coincidence. Alright, I have no interest in whose student you are. I am here only to offer you a warning. It's good to dream big, but a human should know his own place and limits. If you attempt to pursue things that are unreachable to you, not only will you bring pain upon yourself, you will also hurt those around you as well. By then, things will not be resolved with just mere words. And I cannot promise that those whom you associate with will remain unharmed in the process as well. Know my place and limits. Pursue things that are unreachable. Zhang Xian was confused as to what the other party was saying. Just as he was about to ask about it, his eyes suddenly widened in astonishment. You are, from the Luo clan. The threat, coupled with the previous words about naive, young ladies. Could the other party be Luo Ruoxin's family? Only a clan as powerful as the Luo clan would be in command of experts who could subdue him without using any battle technique at all. The pieces of the puzzle seemed to fit together perfectly. While he and Luo Ruoxin had never told anyone that they had gotten together, it was not surprising that a family as powerful as the Luo clan would be able to uncover that. Quite a keen mind you have there. The black-robed elder harumphed, not denying the matter. With a lofty look on his face, he gazed down at Zhang Xian as if looking at a mere ant and said, by this point, you should be aware that she's the little princess of our Luo clan. She carries heavy responsibility on her shoulders. I advise you not to have any thoughts toward her. Someone like you will never be good enough for the Luo clan. Someone like me will never be good enough. Zhang Xian subconsciously clenched his fists tightly together. Indeed. The Luo clan is one of the top 3 sage clans on the master-teacher continent, and there is no one who doesn't know that our little princess wields immense power. As long as she wills it so, anyone whom she favors will be able to rise to the top of the world. You might have some wits, and your talent isn't too bad either, but if you think that you are qualified to get together with our little princess, I suggest that you take a closer look at yourself. A toad lusting over the flesh of a swan will never end well. The black-robed elder sneered in disdain. Who were they? One of the behemoths of the sage clans, a top-notch power on the master-teacher continent. On the other hand, the other party was just a bumpkin from a remote place. Even if he possessed exceptional talent, he was still nowhere near to matching up to the peak. In the first place, they were existences from 2 wholly different worlds. Who are you to judge my worth? The other party's words left a surge of fury rising in his chest. He could not accept the other party saying that he was not good enough for Luo Ruoxin, and he raised his head proudly and bellowed, so what if you are from a sage clan? A higher starting point doesn't give you the right to look down on others. A day will come when even sage clans like yours won't catch my eyes. So what if the other party was from a sage clan? So what if the other party wielded strength far greater than him at the moment? As a celestial master teacher, he would eventually reach heights that no one had seen before. Perhaps, in a few decades' time, the supposed sage clans would be little more than mere ants before him. Many conceited fools have uttered such words in the past as well, but the Luo clan's position still remains unshakable in this world. The elder harumphed with a cold glint in his eyes. I have met countless talents in the world, and there are plenty whose talents you don't even come close to matching. Yet, there was not a single one of them who managed to shake the Luo clan. So, I advise you not to bring trouble upon yourself. I hate to pull my weight before my juniors or to incur the dislike of our little princess, but if you still don't back down, it's my responsibility to give you a good reason to do so. Hong Long. As soon as those words were spoken, the stars up above suddenly seemed to plummet from the sky. Unimaginable might crushed down on Zhang Xian, threatening to smash him into pieces. Under the overwhelming strength of the power, Zhang Xian found himself unable to breathe. As if an ant standing before a giant, he felt utterly vulnerable. Swear on your identity as a master teacher that you won't see her, and I'll spare you, the black-robed man uttered coldly. Zhang Xian felt as if someone was grabbing his neck tightly, and the feeling of death encroaching on him felt more vivid than ever. He struggled with all his might, but he was unable to struggle free. Damn it! This won't do. At this rate, I might really die. The other party's strength was omnipresent around him, there was nowhere he could escape to. It was as if a guillotine was hanging above him, ready to claim his life at any moment. While the other party had not shown any killing intent yet, he hated the feeling of having his life in the hands of another. It felt as if his entire existence was banking on the whims of another, and he abhorred such a feeling of helplessness. His fingernails sank deep into his flesh, causing a stream of blood to drip down his hands. For the first time, he vividly felt the need for power in this world. Without power, there was truly nothing at all. Dignity. Love. Master-teacher rank. All of that was meaningless if one did not have absolute power to protect them. Ever since his transcension to this world, things had always gone favorably for Zhang Xian. While the situation might have gotten a little dangerous from time to time, he had always been able to overcome any adversity with his wits. This was the very first time he had felt completely helpless and powerless. He could not help but realize that if the person before him harbored malevolent intentions, no amount of words would get him out of this situation. For the first time, he desperately craved greater strength. Only with greater strength would he be able to embrace and protect those whom he held dear. Zhang Xian anxiously sent a message to Vicious discreetly. Vicious, what is the strength of that fellow? Are you able to deal with him? With his current strength, he stood no chance against the black-robed elder. His only hope lay in the person who had once stood at the very pinnacle of the master-teacher continent. Master, his cultivation has probably reached Saint Seven Dan. I have yet to recover my true strength, so I fear that I won't be a match for him, Vicious replied with a hint of anxiety in his voice as well. If his master was killed, he would dissipate on the spot as well. This was the effect of the soul contract between them. If he wished to survive, he would have to do his best to ensure the safety of his master. I have to find a way to make him execute a battle technique. Only with some information on him will I be able to find a way out of this situation, Zhang Xian replied, unsurprised by Vicious' response. Saint Seven Dan, that was a level that had nearly reached the peak of the master-teacher continent. With such strength, even the entire Qingyuan Empire would be helpless before him. Vicious was currently only a mere heart and a finger, so it was natural that he would not stand a chance against an expert of the other party's caliber. I should be able to force him into executing a battle technique, but I fear that my killing intent might be a little too strong. He could easily discern that I'm an otherworldly demon, and that might get you into greater trouble, Vicious replied. Zhang Xian gritted his teeth and replied, I'll give you the permission to devour Kong Shi's writing, so do it. Back on the Saint Ascension platform, he had received Kong Shi's personal handwriting. Schemed by Lu Feng back at the Master Teacher Academy, a third of it had been consumed for his clone to act as Yang Shi. To deal with Vicious Finger, another 1/3 of it had been consumed. Thus, only a third of the original text remained in the booklet. This was the last time he could use this card. It was a heavy price to pay, but after consuming Kong Shi's writing, not only would Vicious' aura become much stronger, he would also be able to morph his aura into that of a true master teacher, and that was what Zhang Xian required to resolve the precarious situation he was in. All right. Vicious replied. Kong Shi's writing, which he had kept in his storage ring, gradually faded line after line, and at the same time, Zhang Xian felt a powerful aura surging within him. Boom! The following moment, an aura reminiscent of a rampaging dragon burst into the surroundings, dissipating the power that had gathered in the area in an instant. At the same time, Zhang Xian felt the invisible shackles around him vanish without a trace, as if a fish on shore who had managed to make its way back into the water. On the other hand, not expecting the young man before him to suddenly release an aura so powerful that even he was unable to withstand it, the black-robed elder's body stiffened. Not daring to get careless before such a powerful force, he swiftly executed a defensive technique to ward off the aura. Barely after he successfully protected himself from the burst of aura, the young man before him suddenly raised his head to gaze straight at him. Deep within his eyes, ripples reminiscent of a torrential river could be seen. At the same time, a deep and ancient voice sounded. It was spoken in time with the movement of the young man's voice, but eerily, the voice sounded as if it had come from the heavens. When have I grown so weak that even a mere Saint Seven Dan brat dares to threaten my student? Who do you think you are? Chapter 1172, The Engagement Boom. The powerful aura that had burst forth from Zhang Xian's body left the black-robed elder feeling as if the heavens and earth had shattered, and the sun and moon had fallen. In that instant, he thought that he had witnessed the end of the world. Under the suppression of the overwhelming aura, the black-robed elder's body froze in fear as his mind whirred to a stop. In just the blink of an eye, it was as if a deity had descended from the heavens. The inviolable aura that the other party emanated had dispelled any thought of retaliation in his mind. Not only so, he felt as if his knees would cave in at any moment, as if his body instinctively wanted to worship the figure before him. It took a while before the black-robed elder could speak once more. With quivering lips, he asked weakly, "You are Yang Shi?" "No, that's not right." "A will that Yang Shi has left behind?" For the aura of the young man before him to surge so abruptly, there was only a single possibility. In order to protect his own student, Yang Shi had specially left a sliver of his will in the latter's body. Only in the face of absolute crisis would he show himself. "If I didn't appear, were you going to kill my student?" There was no difference in the external appearance of the young man, but it was as if another person had taken control of the body. Be it his disposition or his voice, it was completely different from before. This was especially so for his gaze. Cold, impassive, and unfathomable, as if a lofty deity from the heavens. Before this powerful figure, the black-robed elder dared not move in the slightest. He feared that the slightest movement could instantly bring death upon himself. Even though he was a Saint Seven Dan cultivator, he knew that before those who stood at the very pinnacle of the master-teacher continent, his strength was not even worth a mention. Even the hostile intent from an expert of that caliber was too much for him to bear, let alone facing one in a proper battle. Despite his trembling body, the black-robed elder asked with a hint of doubt in his voice, "Are you really Yang Shi?" He had once had the honor of meeting Yang Shi, and the latter's voice did not sound like that. On top of that, his aura felt a little different as well. It did not seem likely that they were the same person. "Luo Qingxin, are you doubting me?" The young man took a step forward. Voila! In an instant, the aura intensified, and the surrounding air crackled furiously. It was as if even the world was unable to withstand the overwhelming strength emanated by the young man before him. "I dare not." The face of the black-robed elder paled, and he quickly clasped his fist and lowered his head respectfully. At this point, he did not even dare to breathe loudly. He had only felt such overwhelming pressure from the old ancestor. Who could have thought that the other party wielded such immense strength as well? And more importantly, he was certain that he had never said his name throughout the entire encounter, not even once. Yet, the other party was still able to identify him correctly. This meant that the other party knew who he was. To call himself Yang Xian on top of that, could he really be that legendary figure? But, he had only met that legendary figure once, and before that figure, he was even less than an ant. It was only because of the old ancestor that he had been able to meet that figure, and he did not even dare to report his name for fear that he would sully the other party's ears. So how could the other party possibly know his name? You dare not. It doesn't seem that way to me. Completely different to the humble young man from a moment ago, the person that stood before him at this moment carried an air of disdain for all life forms, as if a being who had transcended the world. The Luo clan's bloodline is powerful, and the art of the Dimension Silencer is a masterpiece. Despite your fortune of being born in the Luo clan, you still managed to make a wreck of yourself. You have reversed the yin-yang of your San Jiao 1 yin meridians and introduced filth into your Jinqi, resulting in your inability to concentrate your strength. Not only that, your 7 acupoints of primordial chaos are plagued with turbidity, and 3 of them are even reversed. During your breakthrough to the primordial spirit realm, the shortcut you attempted to take ended up damaging your foundation, resulting in the corruption of your internal state. Yet, instead of devoting your time to resolving these problems, you chose to head down here to take advantage of my student. Is it because you think that you are too powerful? At this point, a faint, disdainful smile surfaced on the lips of the young man. Shall I play with you? Shivers immediately ran down Luo Qingxin's spine as he quickly lowered his head in abject fear. The terms that the other party had used, the San Jiao yin meridians and the 7 acupoints of primordial chaos, would seem like utter nonsense to any other cultivator, but they left him shaking non-stop, as if he had heard something terrifying. Those were the unique terms used only in their Luo clan's art of the Dimension Silencer. The Luo clan's bloodline granted the offspring of the Luo clan with exceptional talent in spatial manipulation. In fact, its ultimate treasure, the Dimension Silencer, was a powerful artifact that could bring about the complete freezing of space. It was due to this reason that the art of the Dimension Silencer was completely different from other cultivation techniques, tailored solely to those with the Luo clan's bloodline. San Jiao, 7 acupoints, these were terms that only the core members of the Luo clan would know of. Yet, the young man before him spoke of them so easily as if they were nothing at all, accurately identifying the flaws in his cultivation even. This had left his entire body turning freezing cold, and sweat trickled down his back endlessly. If he had been doubtful whether the other party was Yang Shi or not a moment ago, at this moment, he dared not harbor such thoughts. Regardless of whether the other party was truly Yang Shi or not, the other party was definitely of the same caliber as their old ancestor. Otherwise, it was impossible for the other party to see through the problems in his cultivation with a single look. As one of the inner clan members of the Luo clan, he had been guided by top-notch master teachers from birth, but limited by his talent, it was inevitable that he erred in his cultivation from time to time. As these errors accumulated, even though it did not hinder him from exerting his strength, it had capped his cultivation. At this point, it was already nigh impossible for him to achieve a breakthrough to higher realms. This was not uncommon among those of the sage clans. After all, no matter how formidable a teacher one had, it was impossible for a teacher to constantly overlook one's cultivation, not to mention that even advanced master teachers too were not infallible either. Besides, if a cultivator could really avoid erring in one's cultivation, wouldn't he be able to advance through the cultivation ranks easily without facing any bottlenecks? That was clearly daydreaming. But, while it was true that he had errors in his cultivation, it would be difficult for most master teachers to discern it. To be able to see through him with just a glance, that was clearly the prowess that only 9-star master teachers wielded. I dare not to. Luo Qingxin's body trembled uncontrollably upon that realization. Humph, if I had not left a sliver of my will in the body of my student, I might have just lost a student today. The young man gazed down at Luo Qingxin coldly in his eyes, as if contemplating whether he should have the latter killed for his insolence. I didn't intend to make a move on Zhang Shi. Luo Qingxin gulped down a mouthful of saliva as he hurriedly explained, I watched our little princess grow up, and no matter how reckless I am, I would not dare hurt the person she loves, or else she would hate me for life. No matter what, the relationship between her and Zhang Shi is impossible, and I fear that she will be hurt if the both of them get any further involved with one another. That's why I chose to seek Zhang Shi to convince him to step away from the matter. Humph. Are you saying that my student is unworthy of the Luo clan? The young man said once more, his tone laced with threat this time around. That's not what I mean. Luo Qingxin shuddered in fear as he hurriedly explained, Yang Shi, you should know the current circumstances surrounding our Luo clan as well. The matrimony between our little princess and the young prodigy of the Zhang clan cannot be changed. At this rate, the both of them will only be hurt in the end. If that is going to be the case, it will be better for us to end it at this point in time to reduce the heartbreak. The young man narrowed his eyes. Their matrimony cannot be changed. Is that due to your Luo clan or the Zhang clan? If it's the latter, I'll find their old ancestor and talk to him about the matter. Luo Qingxin quickly shook his head. The betrothal between the two was decided 20 years ago. The little princess is also a victim in this matter. Decided 20 years ago. The young man frowned. Tell me about it. I believe that Yang Shi should have heard about the young prodigy of the Zhang clan as well. Even before his birth, he was said to possess the purest bloodline in the Zhang clan. 20 years ago, during the birth of that young prodigy, scarlet clouds covered the entire sky, and a sacred ray of light descended from the heavens. Even Kong Shi's tablet rose into the air, as if acknowledging the arrival of his peer. On that very day, the old ancestor of the Zhang clan sought the old ancestor of our clan, and the both of them agreed on this betrothal, Luo Qingxin said. The marriage ceremony was scheduled for the 3rd month of next year, and this matter can no longer be changed by anyone. 3rd month of next year. The face of the young man darkened, and with a frosty voice, he uttered, does a mere marriage ceremony really require an auspicious day to be chosen 20 years prior? It's not really a matter of it being auspicious or not. Luo Qingxin shook his head with a bitter smile. Rather, it seems like there's something huge tied to it. Our old ancestor has already declared this decision to be final, and no one dares go against his orders. Due to this matter, our little princess has caused a huge ruckus in our clan for quite a while, but as this matter was a promise between the old ancestors of both clans, she was unable to change anything. Eventually, she snuck out of the clan and sealed her cultivation such that no one would be able to find her. I was only able to find her recently, and by the time I did, I realized that she was already deeply in love with Zhang Shi. That's why I decided to talk Zhang Shi into backing down. Something huge is tied to their marriage. What is it? I am not qualified to know of the inner secrets of our clan. I only happened to overhear bits and pieces of it, so I don't know much about it either. However, it should be something very important. After all, as one of the top 3 sage clans, there's no need for our Luo clan to bow down to the Zhang clan, Luo Qingxin replied. Since it's an engagement decided on at birth, is there a reason why the little princess of your Luo clan is unwilling to marry the young prodigy of the Zhang clan? The young man asked. Considering that it was a marriage decided at birth and that both clans were of equal standing, it was likely that the little princess of the Luo clan and the young prodigy of the Zhang clan had grown up side by side, so the relationship between them should not have been too bad. For the little princess to go to the extent of escaping from her clan in order to escape the betrothal, was she not afraid of falling out with her family? Or was there something about the young prodigy of the Zhang clan that was so repulsive to her that she would go to such lengths just to avoid marrying him? Hearing those words, Luo Qingxin could not help but glance at the young man before him with a peculiar look. It felt weird for a figure as powerful as Yang Shi to be so interested in the gossip of their clan. Naturally, he did not dare say those words aloud, and he quickly replied the other party's question. It's just a guess on my part, but I think that our little princess might have rebelled because she's unwilling to marry a person she has never met before. The young prodigy of the Zhang clan is a rather mysterious figure. He has been in seclusion ever since his birth, and unlike most offspring of the sage clans, he has not attended the sanctum of sages either. Not a single person of our Luo clan has seen him before, and this includes our old ancestor as well. Based on what I have heard, it seems like he is busy undergoing some kind of unique inheritance at the moment. No one has seen him before. The young man could not help but frown upon hearing those words. To set an engagement without bringing out the person in question, the Zhang clan sure was bizarre. Indeed. There are many rumors floating around about that young prodigy. Some say that he doesn't possess the talents that he is rumored to possess. Some say that he has failed in awakening his talent, and out of embarrassment, the Zhang clan chose to hide him from the world. Luo Qingxin sighed. There are even some who say that he vanished from the world shortly after his birth, and the Zhang clan has been trying to find him ever since then. In any case, there does not seem to be anyone aside from those of the Zhang clan who have seen that young prodigy before. Thinking about it, the little princess sure was a pitiful person. To have to shoulder the fate of the entire clan at such a young age, even forced to marry a person she had never seen before, it was no wonder she would feel so repulsed and rebel. The young man harumphed coldly. The Zhang clan sure knows how to put on airs. To make a betrothal between the two clans and yet hide their own offspring, I have gotten a glimpse into their shamelessness today. And that young prodigy as well. I really should teach them a lesson about etiquette. Chapter 1173, Entering the Qiu Palace. Luo Qingxin had spoken of the young prodigy of the Zhang clan as a being who wielded unfathomable power in the world, but as the person who possessed the Library of Heaven's Path, Zhang Xian was confident that he would be able to crush the other party with sufficient time and make him doubt his own existence. For no reason other than the fact that he had caused Luo Ruoxin so much grievance over the past few years. Anyone who dares to touch my woman will have to suffer my wrath. Noting the killing intent in Yang Shi's eyes, Luo Qingxin shuddered once more. With a wary tone, he said, Yang Shi, since Zhang Shi is your student, I shall not impose on you any longer. I'll take my leave. If only that he had known that Yang Shi had left his will within the young man's body, he would have never dared to come over and warn the latter. Go. The young man waved his hand. Thank you, Yang Shi. Luo Qingxin quickly turned around to flee. But barely after taking a few steps, he suddenly halted and hesitated for a moment before fearfully turning around. Mustering all the courage he had, he said, Yang Shi, pardon me for saying this, but I hope that you will talk Zhang Shi into letting her go. Our little princess has suffered too much while growing up, and I really hope that she won't be hurt by this matter. Those words left Zhang Xian with a deep frown on his face. But knowing that the other party was really thinking for Luo Ruoxin, he shook his head and said, I'll think about it. You may leave now. Thank you, Yang Shi. Heaving a sigh of relief, Luo Qingxin quickly left the area. Watching as the other party disappeared into the distance, Zhang Xian finally heaved a sigh of relief himself. That earth-shattering aura vanished in an instant, and as if a deflated balloon, he felt so weakened that it was difficult to even lift his own arm. That was a close shave. I was nearly unable to hold on anymore. Zhang Xian patted his chest in relief. Even though Vicious was able to exert an incredibly powerful aura after consuming Kong Shi's writing, the fact was that he could not maintain the state for too long. It was fortunate that his soul depth was only slightly beneath the other party's, allowing him to avoid giving himself away. It was also fortunate that he had dashed out of the city to a remote location earlier, or else with the abrupt emanation of such a powerful aura, it would have surely drawn the attention of the experts within the city. Alright, I should hurry up and leave. If that fellow finds that something is amiss and returns, I won't be able to deal with him again, Zhang Xian thought as he quickly rushed back to the Combat Master Hall. Not too long later, he finally returned to his accommodation. The tension in his mind finally snapped, and a weariness similar to a soldier who had just fought a war consumed him, lulling him into a deep sleep. However, he forced himself to remain awake so as to ponder over the information he had just received. Even though he had managed to beguile the other party through his means, he knew that luck had a factor to play in it as well. Putting on a disguise before experts of the other party's caliber was no different from dancing above a bed of knives. A single wrong move could very well have cast him into oblivion. Had it not been for his superior mental resilience, he would have long been seen through. Taking a seat on the ground, Zhang Xian meditated for roughly 2 hours before the exhaustion finally receded from his body. I need to possess the strength to stand against the Zhang clan by the 3rd month of next year. Recalling the conversation that he'd had with Luo Qingxin earlier, Zhang Xian could not help feeling greatly pressured. Judging from the other party's tone, it seemed like the marriage was not just to create a bridge between the both clans, it also involved an extremely important matter as well, thus fixing it in stone. Not even the beloved little princess of the Luo clan, Luo Ruoxin, had a say in the matter. As talented as Zhang Xian was, it was too dangerous for him to reveal the fact that he was a celestial master teacher to others. After all, he could not tell for sure what the Luo clan and Zhang clan's attitude toward a celestial master teacher would be, so until he had sufficient power to back up his identity, it was best to keep it under wraps. Thus, he was not intending to play the card unless it really became necessary. So, if he really wanted to marry Luo Ruoxin openly, he would have to swiftly raise his cultivation and his standing. By the 3rd month of next year, he needed to possess sufficient strength to stand toe-to-toe with the Zhang clan. Only then would the Luo clan take him seriously and consider their relationship. Otherwise, there was no way they would offend the Zhang clan and choose a supposed genius over a prodigy whose very birth had caused Kong Shi's tablet to levitate in the air. There is still another 8 months or so. I am currently only at St. Tu Dan Pinnacle. If I wish to gain enough power to negotiate with the Luo clan and the Zhang clan, I must at least cultivate to the same level as Luo Qingxin. St. 7 Dan, Zhang Xian thought as immense pressure weighed down on him. Even though he had taken less than a year to advance from the bare bottom to St. Tu Dan, he knew that it would be harder and harder for him to advance higher from this point onward. Not only would it be harder for him to find the necessary cultivation technique manuals, more importantly, there was a lack on cultivation resources as well. In the past, a couple of low-tier spirit stones were enough for him to advance several realms at once, but now, he was not even certain how long concentrated high-tier spirit stones would suffice for him before he would require pinnacle spirit stones. And more importantly, advancing one's cultivation in Saint Realm required one to cultivate one's soul and mind as well. Sufficient spiritual energy was only the minimum requirement to achieving a breakthrough at this point. Without accomplishing the required state of mind, it was impossible to achieve a breakthrough. Tempering one's state of mind had to be done over a long period of time, it was not something that could be accomplished within a short period of time. As such, even though it was only 5 realms, he knew that it would be extremely difficult for him to cover the gap within just 8 months. Even he did not have absolute confidence in being able to pull it off. Thus, all he could do was work himself down to the bone and make every single second he had count. I must hurry up and cultivate. Ruoxin, wait for me. I won't let you suffer any grievances, Zhang Xian muttered with unwavering resolution. After his conversation with Luo Qingxin, it was not hard for him to imagine how difficult it had been for Luo Ruoxin to accept his confession back then. Since the other party had chosen him over everything else, as a man, he could not possibly let her down. No matter what, he was determined to have her marry him openly. He did not want her to suffer the fate that Mu Shi had suffered over the past few centuries. If the Zhang clan stood in his way, he would just have to trample them. With this newfound determination in his mind, he felt his mind suddenly clearing up. His soul seemed to have undergone some kind of change, and his soul energy became even purer than before. Time to cultivate. At the very least, I should try to aim for Saint 4 Dan before daybreak. Sitting on the floor once more, Zhang Xian began browsing through the Saint 3 Dan and Saint 4 Dan Heaven's Path Divine Arts, which he had compiled previously. He had already successfully compiled them back at the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion earlier, but in a rush to attend the appraisal convention, he did not have time to look through them. After internalizing the content of both manuals, he flicked his wrist and whipped out the 17 concentrated high-tier spirit stones that he had obtained from Chu Tianqing. At his current level, even high-tier spirit stones were no longer effective on him anymore. Calming his mind, he drove the Zhenqi in his body before turning his consciousness toward his origin core. Saint 3 Dan embryonic soul realm was also known as the origin soul realm, and it served to fuse one's origin core with one's soul to create an embryonic primordial spirit. The hardest aspect in this breakthrough was to shatter one's origin core and facilitate its fusion with one's soul in order to create the embryo. There were many cultivators who were unable to overcome in this challenge, resulting in the stagnation of their cultivation. Having cultivated the Heaven's Path divine art, even though bottlenecks were pretty much non-existent in his cultivation, it proved to be a problem for him at this point. As his origin core had been tempered to the level of perfection, it was incomparably resilient. It would take a lot more effort for him to shatter his origin core compared to other cultivators. Soul. With a thought, Zhang Xian channeled his soul toward his origin core. There were 2 steps to achieving a breakthrough to the embryonic soul realm. Firstly, the cultivator had to fuse their soul together with their origin core. Secondly, the cultivator had to shatter the fused origin core and facilitate its development into an embryo. According to the description in the Heaven's Path divine art, I just have to open a small door in the origin core to fuse my soul together with my origin core. Going through the content of the Saint 3 Dan Heaven's Path divine art, Zhang Xian focused his attention on his origin core and created a small passageway in it. After which, his soul swiftly dived into the passageway to enter his origin core. Kacha. But barely after diving in, its movements suddenly came to an abrupt halt. This is bad. My soul is stuck. Zhang Xian's soul was simply too big. After undergoing the Saint Ascension ordeal, it had returned to its original size of 10 meters. While his origin core was much stronger than that of other cultivators, it was still too small to house his soul. He had never thought that he would face such a problem in his cultivation. While it was possible for one to morph the size of one's soul, there was a limit to doing so. This was just like how an elephant would never fit into a walnut no matter how it squeezed itself together. After struggling for a very long to no avail, Zhang Xian could only retract his trapped soul with a conflicted look on his face. He already had the required concentrated high-tier spirit stones, and his Heaven's Path divine art had also been perfected, but his soul had turned out to be too big to enter his origin core. If that was the case, he would not even be able to complete the first step of his breakthrough. At this rate, would he be unable to even achieve a breakthrough to Saint 3 Dan? What should I do? Zhang Xian gave it a few more tries, but each time, his soul ended up being stuck without fail. There was even one instance when he was nearly unable to pull out his trapped soul. At this point, he felt like he was going to burst into tears. It had not been easy for him to gather so much drive to cultivate, and he had put his mind to achieving a double breakthrough to the primordial spirit realm, but he had already encountered a bump at the very first step of his cultivation. There's no error in the Heaven's Path divine art, but due to me cultivating my soul, it's not suitable for my current state. Zhang Xian rubbed his glabella. In the previous realms, the cultivation of his Zhenqi and soul were separate, so he had not faced such a problem to date. But the embryonic soul realm required the fusion of the both of them. Typically speaking, Zhenqi cultivation and soul cultivation were considered 2 different branches. Both paths would lead to the peak, so there was little point in pursuing both paths simultaneously. Furthermore, the flaws in the cultivation techniques of the soul oracles made it impossible for one to cultivate both simultaneously. By perfecting the cultivation techniques of the soul oracles, Zhang Xian had managed to achieve the impossible, developing his physical body and soul simultaneously. There had not been many problems in the earlier stages, but it was proving to be a problem for him at this moment. What should I do now? Retracting his consciousness from his dantian, Zhang Xian rubbed his glabella in frustration. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. In the past, he had been able to advance easily just by compiling the knowledge of the predecessors through the Library of Heaven's Path, but treading on a path that none had walked on before, there was no one he could see for help. It's no wonder Kong Shi said that I have to pave my way forward myself if I wish to achieve greater heights. Blindly following the wisdom of the predecessors might bring me to greater heights in the short term, but it'll only narrow my future path, possibly bringing me to a dead end even. Perhaps, he might have even predicted the problems I would face in my cultivation. Back in the Qiu Palace, Kong Shi had warned him that he should not just follow the teachings of the predecessors but seek his own individual path instead. He had kept the other party's teachings in mind, but it was only at this point that he truly understood what it meant. Walking my own path, how can I do so? In the face of such a situation, with no one whom he could learn from, he could not help but feel completely lost. With a deep frown on his forehead, he fell into deep contemplation. Walking one's own path was easier said than done. That was equivalent to venturing into uncharted territories, an extremely dangerous feat after a long moment of contemplation but still coming up with nothing at all. Zhang Xian sighed deeply. Should I head to the Qiu Palace to take another look? Perhaps, I might be able to find something that Kong Shi left behind that will bring me some inspiration. Flicking his wrist, a sphere appeared in his palm. Unique patterns reminiscent of a map were carved on top of it. Back then, he had kept the entirety of the Qiu Palace in the sphere through fusing the map together with it, allowing him to bring it around anywhere he went. Let me go in to take a look. As the master of the sphere, he could easily open a passageway into it. With a thought, he vanished from the spot. Chapter 1174, Heavenly Art of Dimension Unravel Who. In the next moment, he was already standing before the tablet erected right outside the Qiu Palace. The tablet was a gigantic high-tier spirit stone in itself, and it had left him deeply moved back then that he had even considered stealing it. But now high-tier spirit stones were already completely useless to him, so it no longer held as great of an allure to him anymore. These words they have actually reached the level of evoking vividness. Zhang Xian exclaimed as he looked at the three large words, Qiu Palace. Back then, his proficiency in painting wasn't too high, so he wasn't able to accurately discern its level. However, looking at it once more now, he was very certain that those three words had reached the 8th level. As mere words, the feelings that evoked from them were unable to match up to an entire painting, but nevertheless, if one were to stare at it for too long, they might find themselves sinking uncontrollably into a trance. Those words, why does it seem like there is something strange about them? After a short look, just as Zhang Xian was about to take his leave, he suddenly exclaimed with a frown. He didn't think that there was anything peculiar about those three words initially, but after staring at them for some time, he suddenly felt his jinqi jolting within his body. To his shock, his jinqi had suddenly begun flowing on its own accord. It's the circulation pathway for the heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm. Feeling his jinqi flowing under the effects of the three words, Zhang Xian couldn't help but fall in a dazed state. He recognized the circulation pathway which his jinqi was moving at to be the heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm, which he had learned in ancient sage Qiu Wu's trial back then. But why would he have such a reaction just by looking at those three words? Let me give it a try. Allowing his jinqi to move freely, Zhang Xian raised his palm and lightly thrust it towards the tablet after resolving all of the flaws of the heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm, raising it to the level of a Heaven's Path technique. He had gained the ability to manipulate the strength of battle technique freely at his will. Even though he had struck the tablet squarely, the latter didn't sustain the slightest damage at all. Wang! As soon as his palm struck the tablet, those three words suddenly emanated a blinding glow. With a stagger, Zhang Xian vanished from the spot. When he opened his eyes once more, he found that he had entered another space. The space wasn't too large, and the area was filled with all kinds of inscriptions. Heavenly Art of Dimension Unravel. Zhang Xian read the line of words right before him, and his eyes narrowed in astonishment. When those inscriptions were placed together, they formed a unique secret art known as the Heavenly Art of Dimension Unravel. Just by reading its content, Zhang Xian could tell that it was an incredibly profound technique, far exceeding any other secret art he had learned thus far. Could this be the heritage of the Qiu Palace? A thought suddenly struck Zhang Xian's mind, and he couldn't help but gasp. Back then, after being traumatized by him, ancient sage Qiu Wu's will ended up vanishing before it could reveal where the heritage was located. Zhang Xian had thought that the heritage was a gone case after that matter, but who could have thought that it would actually be hidden within a tablet at the entrance? All who had entered the Qiu Wu Palace had headed straight for its deepest regions in hopes of acquiring the greatest treasure within it. What an irony it was for the most valuable heritage to actually be located in the most conspicuous and open place instead. However, it seemed like the key to entering this place was to execute the heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm. Without knowing the battle technique, even if one were to stand before the tablet and notice its peculiarity, one would still be unable to enter it and obtain the heritage. The heavenly art of dimension unravel views the space of heavens and earth as two separate entities, and it seeks to manipulate the two through calculations made through the number of grand transformation 1. While those inscriptions looked foreign to Zhang Xian, for some reason, he was still able to fathom the meaning behind them. Similar to the heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm, this secret art is also divided into 5 dan. Those who have mastered the 5th dan will be qualified to stand at the very peak of the world, possessing strength not beneath mine. Taking the inscriptions into sight, Zhang Xian's eyes lit up in excitement. Initially, due to his possession of the Library of Heaven's Path, he wasn't particularly concerned about obtaining ancient sage Qiu Wu's heritage. However, after looking through the inscriptions, he was glad that he had stumbled upon the heritage eventually. The heavenly art of dimension unravel was truly a powerful technique. If he were to cultivate it well, he would be able to gain a strong grasp over the spatial laws, allowing him to manipulate space skillfully. With that, his fighting prowess could easily be enhanced manyfold. If I could just cultivate the heavenly art of dimension unravel to 2 dan pinnacle, I would at least be able to escape from Luo Qingxin even if I were to encounter him once more, Zhang Xian thought in agitation. So far, Luo Qingxin was the strongest expert he had encountered, a true Saint 7 dan expert. Even if he were to use all of his means, he still wouldn't stand a chance against the other party, and even fleeing was out of the question, but with the heavenly art of dimension unravel, everything would be different. Even if he were to just master the secret art to 2 dan, he would still be able to struggle free of the other party's spatial seal and make his escape. However, it seemed like the secret art had an exceptionally high requirement on one's Jinqi capacity as well. From the looks of it, it seemed like it would be impossible to cultivate it to 2 dan without possessing the cultivation of leaving Aperture Realm Pinnacle. After scanning all of the inscriptions and successfully collecting them into the Library of Heaven's Path, Zhang Xian heaved a sigh of relief. Let me see if I can compile it into the level of Heaven's Path. Over the past few days, he had collected an astounding number of battle technique and secret art manuals. Perhaps, if he were to compile the heavenly art of dimension unravel with them, he might just be able to perfect the secret art. Compile. A book materialized before Zhang Xian's eyes. Flipping open the book, the knowledge contained within the manual flowed into his mind. I have managed to perfect the 1 dan heavenly art of dimension unravel, but I'm still a far way off from perfecting the 2 dan. While he had only managed to perfect the 1 dan heavenly art of dimension unravel, the results were well within his expectations. Overall, he was still satisfied with the outcome. While the heavenly art of dimension unravel formed an entire whole, it was subdivided into multiple dan with increasing levels of profoundness. So far, the most powerful battle technique he had collected so far was only at Saint Intermediate tier. As powerful as Qingyuan Empire was, the battle technique manuals that it had was still insufficient for him to perfect the entire heavenly art of dimension unravel. In fact, it was already a huge blessing that he was able to perfect the 1 dan of the secret art here. Let me try cultivating the secret art. Zhang Xian swiftly internalized the 1 dan heavenly art of dimension unravel before backing out of the space within the tablet. He swiftly searched for a quiet location in the Qiu Wu Palace before whipping out his concentrated high-tier spirit stones to cultivate the secret art. The heavenly art of dimension unravel was a technique that granted one the ability to manipulate space, so in the strictest sense, it couldn't be considered as a cultivation technique or battle technique. If one were to fully master the secret art, one would be able to manipulate space and traverse through it freely. In fact, it was possible to cover a distance of over 100 million li within a single day through it. All in all, the secret art could be divided into 5 realms, which were namely compress, traverse, control, creation, and destruction. One who masters the one Dan heavenly art of dimension unravel would be able to compress space, allowing one to cover a distance of 100 meters in a single step if used well in battle. It could allow one to catch one's opponents off guard and launch a surprise assault or escape from a cornered situation. Going through the cultivation technique in his mind, Zhang Xian drove his Jinqi, and before long, he entered a unique trance. In this state, his comprehension of spatial laws swiftly deepened. A long time later, he opened his eyes once more and stood up. Then, he took a single step forward. Hula! His figure suddenly vanished on the spot and appeared at a distance of 100 meters ahead. I succeeded. Zhang Xian's eyes lit up. Cultivating the heavenly art of dimension unravel wouldn't raise his cultivation, but it would deepen his understanding over the spatial laws. If paired with his unbounded treader, he would be able to flit from place to place like a specter. With my current speed and grasp of spatial laws, I should be able to match even Vice Pavilion Master Tian in a battle. With Zhang Xian's current fighting prowess, he could already be considered an invincible existence amongst primordial spirit cultivators. Even so, it was still difficult for him to go up against half-leaving Aperture Realm experts like Vice Pavilion Master Tian. However, after learning the heavenly art of dimension unravel and gaining a deeper understanding of space, half-leaving Aperture Realm experts no longer posed as great of a threat to him anymore. With his enhanced understanding of space, even if the other party were to use his primordial spirit to suppress him, he would still be able to easily struggle free. On top of that, as long as he were to play his cards well, he could abruptly appear before his enemy and deal out a lethal blow before the latter could process what was going on. More importantly, after learning the one Dan heavenly art of dimension unravel, I am already able to set up some basic spatial formation. While the spatial formations I can create is still severely limited on many aspects, it has the ability to isolate individuals within it from the rest of the world, as well as to compress matter. Zhang Xian chuckled in delight. It was due to his soul being too big that he was unable to fuse it into his origin core, but with the heavenly art of dimension unravel, as long as he could find a way to set up a spatial formation to compress his soul should be able to enter the passageway of his origin core and successfully fuse the two together. However, Zhang Xian's delight didn't last for too long. Looking at the powdery remains of the concentrated high-tier spirit stones on the ground, he couldn't help but rub his glabella and lament. As powerful as the secret art is, the depletion of Jinqi is really a little unacceptable. Just to cultivate the one Dan heavenly art of dimension unravel, he ended up using up the 17 concentrated high-tier spirit stones which he obtained with great difficulty. Without a doubt, the heavenly art of dimension unravel was an invaluable secret art, allowing one to comprehend the essence of space. However, the depletion that resulted from its cultivation was equally fearsome as well. Initially, he had been thinking that with the concentrated high-tier spirit stones he had at the moment, it should suffice for him to reach embryonic soul realm pinnacle at the minimum, but before he ended up expending all of them before he could even start. How stifling. I really must find a way to earn more money. Zhang Xian thought as he stood up and left the Qiuwu palace. In any case, at least he had managed to resolve the problem regarding his soul being unable to enter his origin core. All he had to do now was to find a way to earn more concentrated high-tier spirit stones. The days without money sure was difficult to endure. But where can I earn more concentrated high-tier spirit stones? Returning back to his room, Zhang Xian lowered his head and pondered instead of anxious heading out. Even if he wanted to earn concentrated high-tier spirit stones, he had to have a concrete direction first. Considering that the Qingyuan royal family only had 17 and the combat master hall could only afford to take out 10, where else in Qingyuan city could he possibly find more concentrated high-tier spirit stones? I should go and ask Hall Master Xing. Knowing that it would be futile for him to rack his brain over it since he didn't have much of an understanding of Qingyuan city in the first place, Zhang Xian stood up and began heading over to Hall Master Xing's residence. By this point, the sun had already risen at the horizon. The brilliant rays of the sun pierced through the coldness of the night, bringing warmth to the world. It didn't take long for Zhang Xian to find Hall Master Xing. At this point, the latter had already mastered the Vitreous Heart Tempering Sutra. Over the past few days, his primordial spirit had become even purer, and his aura felt denser than before. At this rate, it shouldn't be long before Hall Master Xing was ready to face the Leaving Aperture ordeal and push for a breakthrough to Leaving Aperture Realm primary stage. Hall Master Xing, how are Elders Su and the others? I hope that they aren't causing you any problem. Yesterday, Elders Su and the others were brought away from those of the Combat Master Hall, and given that a day has passed since then, they should have been settled down by now. They aren't causing any trouble, but something weird did happen. Yesterday, Butler's son happened to pass by their quarters, and shortly after, all of them suddenly chose to join the Xianxian faction as well. Hall Master Xing said with a perplexed look the Poison Masters were far more compliant than he expected them to be, but if he had to point out something weird about them, it would be their excessive respect towards Zhang Xian's butler. Sun Chang's strength was unremarkable, but for some reason, the Poison Masters from the Poison Hall would bow respectfully to him whenever they met the latter. As such, that butler extended an invitation to the Poison Masters to join the Xianxian faction as well, and naturally, that bunch accepted the offer and became members of the Xianxian faction as well. But of course, that wasn't at odds with them being members of the Combat Master Hall, so it wasn't really a big problem. I see anyway, I'm glad that they aren't causing any trouble. They have been through a lot, so I hope that you can treat them kindly. They do possess expertise in a field that the Combat Master Hall is lacking in, so it would be good to have the other Combat Masters to interact with them, allowing them to learn from one another. Zhang Xian nodded. That is my intention as well, right, Principal Zhang. The other conferred Empire Combat Master Halls will be coming over for a friendly spar a few days later, so if you have some time, I would like to invite you to conduct a few lectures for our Combat Masters. Hall Master Xing said. The other conferred Empire Combat Master Halls will be coming over for a friendly spar. That's right. They should be arriving in 3 days' time. Hall Master Xing nodded. Chapter 1175. All at once Zhang Xian's eyes lit up, and he hurriedly asked, how many Combat Master Halls will there be? Will they be bringing many concentrated high-tier spirit stones with them? He was currently about to go insane from a lack of money. If the conferred Empire Combat Master Halls that were coming over for the friendly spar were wealthy, he could try to think of a way to earn some from them. As soon as the words, concentrated high-tier spirit stones came out of Zhang Xian's words, Hall Master Xing could immediately guess what the other party was thinking about, and a helpless smile surfaced on his lips. There are 3 conferred Empire Combat Master Halls coming over. They are of the same tier as our branch, so it's unlikely that they will have many concentrated high-tier spirit stones on them. Same tier. Indeed. There is a total of 8 conferred empires under the Empire Alliance. 4 of them belong in the upper tier, whereas the remaining 4, which includes our Qingyuan conferred empire, belong to the lower tier. The ones that are coming over for the friendly spar this time around belong to the latter group. The friendly spar is actually a selection exercise for us to select 20 candidates out of the 4 Combat Master Halls for the opportunity to train in the Qiancheng Conferred Empire, Hall Master Xing explained. In previous years, our Qingyuan Empire Combat Master Hall has only been able to acquire 2 slots at maximum, putting us at the lowest rank among the 4 Combat Master Halls. But this time around, seeing that our combat masters have made massive improvements after training with the Xianxian faction, I hope to try to vie for a few more slots. Train at the Qiancheng Conferred Empire. Is there some kind of blessed land for cultivation there? Zhang Xian asked. Back then, he had headed to the Huanyu Empire in order to access the cleansing lake, which was said to be beneficial to soul cultivation. Could it be that the Qiancheng Empire had something similar to that as well? Speaking of blessed lands, there is indeed one of them there. The Qiancheng Empire has a sword pool, which harnesses boundless sword intent and sword art. If a cultivator tempers themselves in the sword pool, it will sure enhance their fighting prowess by leaps and bounds. As such, this slot is very important to our Qingyuan Empire Combat Master Hall. On top of that, the headquarters also reward the conferred Empire Combat Master Halls according to the number of slots they obtain. The more slots a certain Combat Master Hall obtains, the more resources it will be entitled to. Hall Master Xing said. Resources? That single word triggered Zhang Xian's interest, and his eyes immediately lit up. Indeed. In the previous friendly spar, the Chongyuan conferred empire obtained the most slot, and the headquarters rewarded them with 100 concentrated high-tier spirit stones, Hall Master Xing replied. You said, 100 concentrated high-tier spirit stones? Zhang Xian's hands began trembling in excitement. If you were to obtain so many concentrated high-tier spirit stones, it would definitely be more than sufficient for him to push for a breakthrough straight to the primordial spirit realm pinnacle. That's right. Hall Master Xing nodded. To be honest with you, while it's called a friendly spar, in essence, it could be regarded as a military display for the Combat Master Halls as well. Each Combat Master Hall will send out the strongest expert for each cultivation level and pit them against one another, and to the side that obtains the most victories, the headquarters will not hesitate to award them more resources. In a sense, it serves to motivate the subordinate Combat Master Halls and Combat Masters to work more diligently than ever. Zhang Xian nodded in realization. If one were to view the Combat Master Hall as an army, this friendly spar would be similar to a tournament among the different units. In times of peace, competition could pressure the Combat Master Halls and their Combat Masters into pushing themselves to greater heights. Otherwise, without any concrete aims and goals for them to strive for, the morale and discipline of the Combat Masters could gradually slacken. If Principal Zhang can help offer some pointers to our Combat Masters and help them clinch the top position, I am willing to share half of the awarded concentrated high-tier spirit stones with you. That's already the most that I can give you within the limits of my authority, so I am really unable to share any more with you. Hall Master Xing said. The young man before him did not just possess superior fighting prowess, granting him nigh invincible might among his peers, his comprehension of combat and battle techniques had also achieved an unfathomable level. While he rarely offered any guidance to others, his pointers were always spot on, leaving one deeply enlightened by his teachings. If they could really engage his help, the Qingyuan Empire Combat Master Hall could very well surpass its previous results and reach a new peak. It was with this in mind that Hall Master Xing had offered Zhang Xian such generous terms upon seeing the latter. Deal. Before Hall Master Xing could finish his words, the young man before him had already interjected decisively. Was there any need to hesitate over the matter? What he was lacking at this very moment was concentrated high-tier spirit stones. Putting aside half of the total reward pool, even if Hall Master Xing had offered him just 1/3 of it, he would still have accepted the request without any hesitation. Seeing that Zhang Xian had agreed to the request, Hall Master Xing heaved a sigh of relief. It's settled then. If nothing goes wrong, the men from the other 3 Combat Master Halls should be arriving within 3 days. Principal Zhang, I'll leave the training of the Combat Masters completely in your hands, so feel free to do whatever you want. Don't worry, I'll order them to abide by your commands unconditionally. You said earlier that the friendly spar is a fight among the strongest cultivator of each cultivation realm. May I know what the specific cultivation levels for the friendly spars are, and have the candidates been chosen yet? Zhang Xian asked. All in all, there are 20 candidates, and the cultivation levels range from Chrysalis Realm Primary Stage to Spiritual Perception Realm Pinnacle, all in all, 20 cultivation stages. We have already chosen the candidates, Hall Master Xing replied. Chrysalis Realm, Half-Saint, Nascent Saint, Void Pursuit Realm, and Spiritual Perception Realm, and each realm consisted of Primary Stage, Intermediate Stage, Advanced Stage, and Pinnacle. This added up to 20 cultivation stages. Each combat master hall would dispatch their strongest expert for each of the cultivation stages for the friendly spar, and the ultimate winner in that class would be entitled to the nomination slot. Where are they? Bring me over to meet them. Since Hall Master Xing had already chosen the candidates, the remaining part was rather simple. He would just have to find what each individual was skilled in and offer the other party pointers in that aspect so as to maximize the other party's fighting prowess. They are currently in the training hall. Hall Master Xing smiled as he quickly led the way over. The training hall was located in the vicinity of the martial arts division, and it was a place where combat masters sparred with one another in their free time. The hall was extremely spacious. There were 4 dueling platforms erected at the very center with a spectator stand at the outer perimeter. At the same time, there were also seclusion chambers for combat masters to rest in between battles as well. Even before entering the training hall, the sound of swift air currents could be heard in the air. It seemed like there were quite a few people sparring within the training hall. Excited cheers and anxious shouts could be heard here and there, creating a lively atmosphere. Walking into the training hall, Zhang Xian swiftly saw 2 combat masters clashing with one another on one of the dueling platforms. Elegant moves sprung forth from both parties one after another as their immense strength collided again and again, drawing in fixated gazes on them. Surrounding the dueling platform was around a dozen combat masters. Whenever they saw a formidable move being executed, they would cheer in excitement. Zhang Xian took a swift look through the group, and to his astonishment, he found 2 familiar faces, Shi Hao from the Inner Breath Division and Jiao Tan from the Martial Arts Division. These 2 were top-notch geniuses from the Combat Master Hall, so it was not too surprising that the both of them had made it onto the list of candidates to participate in the friendly spar. Hall Master Xing, Zhang Shi. Upon seeing the 2 figures walking over from the entrance, the crowd quickly halted what they were doing and clasped their fists respectfully. Hall Master Xing stepped forward and said, "There's no need to stand on ceremony. I believe that all of you should be familiar with Principal Zhang, so I shall not waste any time introducing him to you all again." The crowd nodded. In the past few days that Zhang Xian had spent in the Combat Master Hall, he had paid a visit to all the divisions and caused a huge ruckus in each of them. They would have to have been living under a rock to have not heard of him. A person who consecutively broke the records of every single trial in the Combat Master Hall, and by an inconceivably large margin at that. At this point, they were filled with nothing but admiration and awe for the other party. Our Combat Master Hall has high expectations for the friendly spar with the other conferred Empire Combat Master Halls that will be coming here in 3 days' time. In view of that, we have specially invited Principal Zhang over here to conduct special training for all of you. I expect all of you to cooperate fully with him, got that? Yes, Hall Master Xing. Upon hearing that Zhang Xian was going to train them, the eyes of the combat masters immediately lit up in excitement. They had witnessed the astounding might of the Xianxian faction with their very own eyes. To be taught by the person who had transformed an ordinary master-teacher academy filled with ordinary master-teachers into a power whose fighting prowess exceeded combat masters of the same cultivation. They could not help but shudder in excitement as they imagined how their fighting prowess would soar within the next 3 days. "Principal Zhang, why don't you come up here and say a few words as well?" Hall Master Xing invited with a smile. Zhang Xian nodded. Without wasting any time on pleasantries, he flicked his wrist and whipped out some rope before saying, "Hall Master Xing, please tie my hands up." Ah! Hall Master Xing was stunned. "Please tie my hands up." Hall Master Xing had no idea what Zhang Xian was up to, but the latter must have had his own reasons for making such a request. Thus, without any further hesitation, he pulled Zhang Xian's hands behind his back and tied them firmly together. Struggling a little, Zhang Xian nodded in satisfaction when he confirmed that he was unable to break out of his binds. Then, he leaped onto the stage and said, "Suppress all of your cultivation to Chrysalis Realm Primary Stage and, come at me together." After saying those words, Zhang Xian swiftly suppressed his Saint Tu Dan pinnacle cultivation down to Chrysalis Realm Primary Stage before standing patiently at a corner of the dueling platform. You want all of us to attack you together. Zhang Shi, you intend to fight all of us with your hands bound? Is this for real? Zhang Shi, I admire your strength, but to think that you will be able to fight against all of us with your hands bound. I have to say that you are really taking us too lightly. Seeing Zhang Xian's actions, the faces of the combat masters flushed crimson, and they could not help but narrow their eyes slightly in anger. No matter what, they were the geniuses specially picked out by the combat master hall to participate in the friendly spar, the strongest combat masters in their power class. It was true that Zhang Xian possessed strength far surpassing theirs, and one-on-one, they would stand no match at all. However, to challenge all 20 of them with his hands bound. Was he not mocking them? Why? You dare not accept my challenge? Despite Zhang Xian's provocations, none of the 20 candidates dared step forward. Thus, Zhang Xian glanced at them leisurely and continued. Since that's the case, I'll leave behind 2 footprints here. If any one of you can make me take a single step away from here, I'll consider it my loss. As he spoke, he stepped lightly on the ground, and 2 footprints appeared on the sturdy ground of the dueling platform. What pure Zhenqi! The crowd widened their eyes at that sight. Given that the dueling platforms would have to endure the might of the cultivators fighting above it, they had been constructed with the most resilient of materials. On top of that, there were also several seals cast over them, such that even Saint Realm experts would struggle to make a mark on them. Yet, despite lowering his cultivation to Chrysalis Realm primary stage, the other party had left such a clear imprint on the dueling platform just by stepping lightly on it. Only a cultivator with unbelievably pure Zhenqi could possibly concentrate their strength to their feet to such an extent. The purity of Zhang Shi's Zhenqi is indeed incredible. However, to defeat all of us while neither using your hands nor moving your feet, even for an expert of your caliber, that should be an impossible task. After a short moment, a combat master suddenly harumphed before leaping onto the stage. Why don't I test it out first? If you are able to defeat me even like that, we will go against you all at once. The combat master was none other than Shi Hao. He was the young man who had suppressed his cultivation for 20 whole years to achieve a new record for the trial of inner breath, only to be outdone by Zhang Xian a few moments later. After that traumatizing experience, he had managed to achieve a breakthrough, and he was currently a Saint Tu Dan intermediate stage expert. Hearing Shi Hao's suggestion, the remaining combat masters nodded in agreement. As fellow peers, they were aware of the immense strength that Shi Hao wielded, and they trusted deeply in his capabilities. Through watching the battle between him and Zhang Xian, they would be able to discern the fighting prowess of the latter with his hands bound and feet in place. Jai. After stepping onto the stage, Shi Hao wasted no time with words and swiftly suppressed his cultivation to Chrysalis Realm primary stage, just like Zhang Xian. Zhang Shi, please guide me. Shi Hao said with narrowed eyes. Raising his hand, he sent a powerful burst of Zhenqi toward Zhang Xian before charging forward. Even before Shi Hao's figure reached Zhang Xian, the burst of Zhenqi he had sent prior had already arrived. Shi Hao knew of the strength that Zhang Xian possessed, so he did not hesitate to devote his full strength to the burst of Zhenqi. Under the immense might of the burst of Zhenqi, even the sturdy ground of the dueling platform could not help but tremble uncontrollably. Chapter 1176, Infinitesimal Maneuver, Not Bad. Seeing how Shi Hao was no longer relying on brute force as he had done previously after the past few days of training, Zhang Xian nodded in approval. Facing the other party's assault, he stood his ground firmly and tilted his body slightly. Voila! Shi Hao's palm strike flowed right past Zhang Xian's shoulders, missing by just a hair's breadth. This evasion was truly beautifully carried out. A split second earlier, and the other party might still be able to alter the trajectory of his strike to launch a different attack, a split second later, and he would have been injured by the other party's strike. This is infinitesimal maneuver. Beneath the dueling platform, Hall Master Xing narrowed his eyes in shock. Hall Master Xing, what is infinitesimal maneuver? an uncomprehending combat master asked doubtfully. Infinitesimal maneuver is the act of precisely calculating the might, timing, and trajectory of an opponent's offense and making the corresponding maneuvers to neutralize the offense. Through doing so, one is able to dodge any attack with ease and even prepare a counterattack in advance, allowing one to turn the tables in an instant, Hall Master Xing explained. The fundamental principle behind infinitesimal maneuver involved dodging attacks at the very last moment so that the opponent would not have chance to alter their offense, and at a close proximity, one would be in a good position to launch a counterattack and turn the tables. The theory behind infinitesimal maneuver was simple, but it was too difficult to carry it out in practice. Not only did one need to have an exceptional eye of discernment and sharp reflexes, more importantly, one's state of mind needed to have reached a certain mark as well. Ultimately, humans were living beings, not puppets that would blindly follow orders. Inevitably, a cultivator would feel nervous and uncertain when a sword was right before them, and there would be an instinctive desire to protect themselves and distance themselves from the sword. Even among leaving aperture realm experts, I only know of a very small handful who have reached such a realm, and even I have not reached this level yet. I honestly didn't expect Principal Zhang to have achieved this level, Hall Master Xing remarked in awe. Leaving aperture realm? The crowd was astonished. No wonder Zhang Xian was so formidable, shattering all the records in the Combat Master Hall. His talent in martial arts had indeed far exceeded theirs. While the crowd was still shocked by the matter, Zhang Xian, who had just dodged Shihao's palm, began to launch his counterattack. At this point, Zhang Xian was already close to Shihao as a result of latter's palm strike, and with a slight jerk of his shoulder, he lightly struck the other party's chest. Who? Before Shihao could even react, his figure had already retreated into the distance before crashing onto the ground. Shihao swiftly got up, and with a pale face, he clasped his fist and bowed. I have lost. He knew that the other party had gone easy on him, or else things would not have ended so easily. If the other party had willed it so, he could have died from that shoulder jerk itself. Zhang Xian turned to the remaining combat masters and said, "Come at me all at once." Voila! This time, the remaining combat masters leaped onto the dueling platform without any hesitation. A young man amid the combat masters bellowed, "Let's surround him and use our fastest battle techniques to overwhelm him. I don't believe that he will be able to dodge every single one of our attacks." He was none other than Jiao Tan. As the genius of the martial arts division, he had a deep understanding of combat. With just a look, he was able to instantaneously identify what Zhang Xian's flaws would be with his hands tied. The remaining 19 combat masters swiftly took their positions around Zhang Xian, and when a loud "move" was shouted by Jiao Tan, all of them executed their fastest battle techniques simultaneously. So. The loud whirring of wind sounded on the dueling platform. In that instant, it was as if countless arrows were raining down from the sky, covering Zhang Xian entirely. Let's see how he will deal with such a situation, Hall Master Xing muttered as he stared at the situation on the dueling platform intently, not daring to blink. Every member of the Combat Master Hall had learned all sorts of collaborative formations, which allowed them to collaborate with one another under any circumstances, regardless of how many people they had, thus synergizing their offense together and exerting a fighting prowess far beyond what they could achieve individually. Despite having suppressed their cultivation to Chrysalis Realm primary stage, the simultaneous offense of the 19 combat masters was truly fearsome. Even a nascent saint would have been crushed into a lump of meat in the face of their combined might. Intrigued to see how the talented Zhang Xian would neutralize this situation, Hall Master Xing drove his strength as a leaving aperture realm cultivator, and everything on the stage seemed to slow down for him. He could perceive even the slightest of gestures made by anyone on top of the dueling platform with perfect clarity. Fist, finger, palm, head, leg. All sorts of attacks from the 19 combat masters simultaneously fell upon Zhang Xian. They were all the most talented geniuses of the Combat Master Hall, and under the incredible might of their collaboration, even the surrounding air seemed to have been thrown into a state of disarray, producing a series of sonic booms in the air. Seeing the storm-like offense carried out by the 19 combat masters, Hall Master Xing unwittingly imaged himself in Zhang Xian's position, and his body shuddered slightly in apprehension. Even with his current fighting prowess, he knew that he would not stand a chance against that barrage of attacks if he suppressed his cultivation as well. Looking intently to see how Zhang Xian would deal with such a situation, he saw the latter standing still on the spot instead, not moving in the least. It was as if he had not even realized the precarious situation he was in. This attack could deal significant damage to him even if he didn't suppress his cultivation, but he still isn't planning to avoid it. Hall Master Xing was appalled. However, in the next instant, his eyes suddenly narrowed in astonishment. He realized that the other party was not standing still on the spot at all. On the contrary, the other party was moving so quickly and slightly that it was imperceptible to the naked eye. Even with his spiritual perception, he was only able to make out bits and pieces of it. Walala! Due to Zhang Xian's slight movements, the attacks of the combat masters ended up falling empty. Astonishingly, despite the encirclement that they had put up, they were not able to land even a single blow on the unmoving Zhang Xian. This. Hall Master Xing felt his throat running dry. Back when he, Division Head Liao, and Division Head Wei had assaulted the other party at the trial of inner demons, he clearly had not been that formidable. How could he suddenly have grown so much more powerful within 3 short days? In this instant, it seemed as if the young man had absolute control over the space around him. Regardless of whether the attack had come from the front or the back, he could perceive it with absolute precision and move accordingly. Alright, it should be my turn now. At this moment, a nonchalant voice suddenly sounded from the dueling platform. That voice carried a quality that seemed as if it had come from the primordial era, reverberating deeply in his mind, leaving him feeling lightheaded. Shit, this is a demonic tune. Hall Master Xing widened his eyes in alarm. He was just about to warn the combat masters on the dueling platform when he saw that the eyes of the 19 on the stage were glazed. It was already too late, they had fallen in a trance. Voila! Following that, instead of making use of this opportunity to launch an assault, Zhang Xian swept a nonchalant gaze over the combat masters. His movements were poised and dignified, reminiscent of an emperor assessing his soldiers authoritatively or a strict teacher staring down on students who had skipped class. This seemingly simple gesture affected endless fear and deference within the hearts of the combat masters. Putong! One of the combat masters who had a lower soul depth could not take it any longer and caved into Zhang Xian's gaze. He kneeled down onto the floor and pleaded for forgiveness. I was wrong. Please forgive me. I will not dare to do it again. While the other combat masters did not cave in directly, their bodies were wobbling on the spot, an indication that their minds were swiftly approaching their limits. There's no need to continue the battle any longer. You have all lost. Hall Master Xing quickly leaped onto the dueling platform to halt the duel. After which, he subconsciously turned his gaze toward Zhang Xian once more to assess the young man. Facing the assault of 19 men with his feet planted on the ground and hands tied behind his back, he was still able to fend off the storm-like barrage of attacks easily. Not only so, with just a single sentence, he had incapacitated all of them, and with a gaze, he had forced all of them into submission. This was too fearsome. Yes. It was only after hearing Hall Master Xing's bellow that everyone finally recovered from their trance. At this point, their robes were already completely drenched with sweat. Facing Zhang Xian once more, they subconsciously took a step back out of fear. They did not even realize when they had fallen into a trance. If the other party had borne ill intentions toward them, they would have been corpses by now. Paying no heed to the shocked combat masters, Hall Master Xing walked up to Zhang Xian and asked in bewilderment, Principal Zhang, you should have utilized the means of a terpsichore earlier, right? The other party's words had been imbued with the ability of a demonic tunist, that he could be certain of, but that sweeping gaze at the very end, he was not too sure, but it deeply resembled the ability of terpsichores. That's right. Zhang Xian nodded. Terpsichores, are able to command such a powerful presence as well? Hall Master Xing frowned in incomprehension. In his mind, terpsichores were scantily dressed ladies who beguiled others through their dances, but Principal Zhang's gestures were reminiscent of a regal emperor, and his eyes carried authority that none would dare defy. Were terpsichores capable of doing this as well? The abilities of a terpsichore are not just centered around charm. If that was all there was to the occupation, Kong Shi would not have allowed this occupation to be classified as a unique occupation in the first place. Those who have reached the peak of terpsichorean arts are capable of influencing others with just a simple gaze or gesture, granting them unthinkable fighting prowess in battle, Zhang Xian said calmly as he undid the ropes behind him with a slight jerk of his hands. If terpsichores had to rely on their physical features and alluring dances to charm and attack other cultivators, they would have been unworthy of being one of the unique occupations. As the saying went, the greatest sound is silence, and the greatest form is formless. If the heritage of terpsichores had truly been that shallow, there was no way it would have been able to withstand the trial of time. I am enlightened, Hall Master Xing replied with his face slightly reddened in embarrassment. To be honest, as a combat master, he had always looked down on the terpsichore occupation. He had thought that they were a shallow occupation that used their physical traits to charm others, but the situation had clearly shown him that there was no such thing as an occupation being unworthy of respect. There were only people who were unworthy of respect. Turning his attention away from Hall Master Xing, Zhang Xian turned to the candidates once more and said, "Despite coming at me together, none of you managed to touch me. Is there anyone who disagrees with the results and would like to give it another go? We dare not. We are completely in awe of you. Zhang Shi, we beseech you to teach us well." The crowd looked at Zhang Xian with impassioned, fiery eyes. If they had only been impressed by Zhang Xian's talent previously, after that battle, they had no choice but to acknowledge that they were inferior to the young man in every respect. It was almost as if they lived in two different worlds. To be able to learn from a person like that was indubitably something extremely fortunate. Seeing that the attitudes of the crowd had changed, Zhang Xian nodded in satisfaction. The reason he had chosen to have his hands and feet bound to fight with those combat masters was not to show off but to shake their confidence and win their trust instead. This would be extremely important if he wanted to induce a metamorphosis in them within just 3 days. Since no one wants to spar with me anymore, I'll begin the training exercise. Every single one of you will have a different task to deal with, and you must accomplish it within 3 days. If you fail, don't blame me not getting cruel. The crowd nodded. Yes. All of you are different from the members of the Xianxian faction. Their eye of discernment and combat sense were not too strong when they first joined the organization, so I could simply impart everything I knew to them. You guys are different. Having internalized countless battle techniques, my lectures on combat sense will likely have minimal effects on you. So, I can only resort to another method. Seeing the crowd agree to it, Zhang Xian flicked his wrist, took out a few pieces of paper, and swiftly jotted down 20 different training plans. Alright, I have designed the training plans specially for each of you. Cultivate strictly according to your. The combat masters took the training plans and swiftly lowered their gazes to look at them excitedly. However, barely after taking a look, their eyes nearly bulged out of their sockets from shock. Chapter 1177, Eccentric Training Regimes in the Elder Hall of the Combat Master Hall. Hall Master Xing has gone to find Principal Zhang. Division Head Wei frowned. Division Head Liao nodded. Indeed. If I'm not mistaken, Principal Zhang should have started training our combat masters by now. With Principal Zhang's help, I am reassured. Even average master teachers in the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy have become experts on par with us, combat masters. After just a few sessions of tutelage, his capabilities are truly nothing short of being phenomenal. My thoughts exactly. It might just be 3 short days, but with his help, the fighting prowess of our 20 candidates would surely advance by leaps and bounds. Perhaps, We might really be able to bring about a miracle this time around, Division Head Liao remarked. Having interacted with the Xianxian faction previously, he had a clear understanding of how frighteningly effective Zhang Xian's teachings could be. In just a few short months, not only was the fighting prowess of the Xianxian faction enhanced significantly, their comprehension of combat had also achieved a level comparable or perhaps even exceeding theirs. Shall we secretly take a look at how the training is going? Division Head Wei proposed out of curiosity. Secretly take a look. To be honest, I'm interested to see how Principal Zhang intends to train that lot. If we could learn a thing or two from him, we could emulate his methods and groom generation after generation of powerful combat masters. Division Head Wei stroked his beard with an excited gleam in his eyes. Your words do make sense. Alright, let's head over there together. Moved by the idea as well, Division Head Liao stood up. The training regimes that Zhang Xian had prepared for the combat masters were not confidential, and as a division head of the combat master hall, it was not a big deal for them to watch over the training of the combat masters anyway. Thus, the duo hurriedly made their way over to the training hall. Why is the door open? The first thing that they noticed upon arriving in the vicinity of the training hall was that its massive doors were wide open. Typically speaking, when a training session was in place, the doors should have been tightly shut. Glancing at one another in confusion, the duo walked into the training hall, only to find that there was not a single silhouette to be found in the vast room. It was as if the 20 candidates had vanished into thin air. Where are they? The two division heads looked at one another in bewilderment. They had been informed earlier that the special training would be conducted in the training hall, so they had expected to see a lecture when they walked in. But did they change the location at the last moment or something? The duo scanned every nook and cranny of the training hall, but none of the 20 candidates were in sight. A moment later, Division Head Wei raised his finger toward one of the isolated chambers and said, "Why don't we ask the cleaner over there? He might know a thing or two." Following Division Head Wei's finger, Division Head Liao saw a cleaner dressed in dirty clothes scrubbing a toilet bowl within the isolated chamber earnestly. "This friend over here, did you happen to see a group of combat masters train, ing?" Before Division Head Wei could finish his words, the cleaner scrubbing the toilet bowl suddenly turned around, and upon getting a clear look of the other party's face, his lips suddenly began twitching. He was one of the candidates who would be representing their combat master hall in the friendly spar, Shi Hao. Through the exceptionally vast capacity and dense shinqi that Shi Hao possessed, he had become a famous figure throughout the combat master hall. For such a figure to be scrubbing toilet bowls, and not to mention, the friendly spar was only 3 days away. He should have been cultivating at that moment. Upon seeing the duo, Shi Hao quickly clasped his fist respectfully. "Division Head Wei, Division Head Liao. What are you doing here? Where are the rest? Didn't Hall Master Xing invite Principal Zhang to lecture you all?" Unable to hold back his shock, he shot straight to the question at hand. "This is the training regime that Zhang Shi has set for me. He has ordered me to clean every single toilet bowl in the Combat Master Hall within 3 days, Shi Hao replied. Clean all of the toilet bowls in the Combat Master Hall within 3 days? The two division heads widened their eyes in shock. All in all, there were more than 10,000 people in the Combat Master Hall, and the visitors from the Xianxian faction added another 10,000 to the number. In order to house 20,000 men simultaneously, it was a given that there were many public facilities. Even by the lower estimates, there had to be at least 1,000 toilet bowls throughout the Combat Master Hall. Was it even possible to scrub so many toilet bowls within 3 days? Taking a step back, even if it could be done, what about the friendly spar? Did Shi Hao not need to cultivate? That's right. Furthermore, he has strictly ordered that I can only use this tool in the cleaning, Shi Hao said as he raised the item in his hand. The sight of that item left the eyelids of the two division heads twitching wildly. Astonishingly, what was in the other party's hand was not a scrubbing brush or anything of that sort but a feather duster. The softness of a feather duster made it suited for cleaning dust, but to clear off the grime and filth that was firmly attached to the toilet bowl. Could it be done? Pardon me, division heads, but I don't have much time to spare. I have to finish scrubbing all of the toilet bowls within 3 days, or else a pitiful fate will be awaiting me. I have to get to work now. After saying those words, Sure How decisively turned away from the two and continued scrubbing the toilet bowl before him diligently. Ah. All right then, we won't trouble you any longer. Do you know where the other combat masters are? Division Head Wei asked. Without raising his head, Sure How replied, Jiao Tan is busy smacking flies buzzing around the bathroom outside, and Qin Xiao is trying to catch birds. As for the rest, I'm not too sure. However, they should be within the vicinity, so you can try looking for them. Smacking flies? Catching birds? The bodies of the two division heads swayed from side to side as the vision before them abruptly darkened. Shouldn't they have been listening to a lecture at this very moment? Weren't the combat masters supposed to be attending a crash course to raise their fighting prowess as much as possible over the next 3 days? But, scrubbing toilet bowls, smacking flies, and catching birds. It was as if the world had gone bonkers. Perplexed, the duo walked out of the training hall with confusion clearly written on their faces. They were intending to search for the fly-smacking Jiao Tan and bird-catching Qin Xiao when they saw a young man following behind a female combat master with a bright smile on his face. Big sister, don't leave. Why don't we explore the intricacies of the human body together? Pa. Hey. If you are unwilling, just say so. There's no need to resort to violence. That big brother over there, are you interested in exploring the intricacies of the human body together? Scram. Roger that. Upon seeing this sight, Division Head Wei subconsciously turned his gaze to Division Head Liao, and just as he had expected, the latter's lips were twitching wildly, and his face was so reddened that it seemed as if he would burst into tears at any moment. If I'm not mistaken, that young man over there is your student, Lu Jianling, right? That's indeed my student. He has always been a rather shy and introverted person, so why would he be chasing after ladies and uttering such brazen words? Not to mention, why in the world is he chasing after men as well? Division Head Liao covered his face from the utter shame as he instinctively walked away in a different direction. He was afraid that his student would actually run up to him and invite him to explore the intricacies of the human body together. His old heart would not have been able to take that blow. On the other hand, Division Head Wei looked at the sight a little longer and gulped down a mouthful of saliva before catching up with Division Head Liao. The duo continued walking forward, and before long, they saw a young man standing before a tree, driving his Jinqi furiously. He seemed to be undergoing some kind of intense training. This should be Dong Rui from the Guardian Division. He has managed to temper his physical body to an astonishing degree, such that swords and sabers will struggle to leave a scratch on his body, Division Head Wei remarked with a nod. It was gladdening to see someone normal among the insanity. Otherwise, if they were to continue seeing more madness before them, they feared that they would suffer a mental breakdown soon. Division Head Liao heaved a sigh of relief. He was just about to continue speaking when Dong Rui suddenly finished conditioning himself. He began scrambling up the tree with his 4 limbs, and upon reaching the very top, he let go. Paji. He fell head first into the ground, reminiscent of a carrot planted in the earth. Putong. Dong Rui had to struggle a fair bit before he was able to pluck himself out. He applied some medicine on himself before walking up to the tree once more, conditioning his body, and repeating the cycle. Paji. Once again, he fell head first to the ground, and this time, blood sprayed out of his head. The two division heads felt as if they were going insane. What were they doing instead of training? These combat masters were geniuses who they had specially picked out to participate in the friendly spar, and the combat master hall had high expectations of them. Everyone was waiting for them to bring glory back to the combat master hall, and yet, all of them had suddenly gone insane at this crucial moment. Proceeding forward, they encountered more and more bewildering sights. One was sprawled within a bathing vat, acting like a corpse. One had buried himself in the ground, not moving in the least. It did not take long for them to find all 20 geniuses, but it was like all of them had become psychopaths, carrying out actions that no sane human would ever do again and again. Instead of the arrival of a miracle that they had anticipated, it seemed like a cataclysm had struck their combat master Hall instead. Hall Master Xing, what is going on? Unable to take it any longer, the two division heads headed straight to Hall Master Xing's residence, only to see the latter staring blankly into the sky. Hall Master Xing turned around to look at them with a deeply helpless look. I have no idea either. It was then that the duo realized that the head of the usually dashing Hall Master Xing was completely ruffled like a bird's nest. There were dark bags beneath his eyes, as if he had not slept for a few days straight. Principal Zhang is the one who made the call, and he requested that I not interfere in the training regime. I also have no idea what he's up to either. At this moment, Hall Master Xing was truly on the verge of a mental breakdown. He had thought that Zhang Xian would put their combat masters through some special intensive training, but the moment that he saw the papers listing the training regimes, he had nearly lost his mind. Special it was indeed, but this was way too freaking special. Are you sure that this can still be considered training? Are you secretly plotting the downfall of our Qingyuan Empire Combat Master Hall instead? You don't know either. Then, are we going to just let him fool around like that? Division Head Wei exclaimed. I tried talking to him about the matter too, but he said that, if we don't trust him, we should have just trained the candidates ourselves. I also hesitated for very long before deciding to leave it be, Hall Master Xing replied with a bitter smile. In his many years as the head of the Combat Master Hall, this was the first time that he had seen something as mystifying as this. But since he had asked for Zhang Xian's help, it was only right for him to trust the other party. But the two division heads wanted to protest, but they had no idea where they should start. A long time later, Division Head Wei finally found the words to speak. Is Principal Zhang really training our combat masters? I have no idea either, but my thought is that since it's unlikely that 3 days of training by us will make any substantial difference in the results of the friendly spar. Therefore, we might as well just allow him to do as he pleases. Perhaps, who knows? There might really just be a miracle. While Hall Master Xing said those words, his shaking head was more than enough to show his skepticism. Their Qingyuan Empire Combat Master Hall had been in a weak position for a very long time. While they would be dispatching their greatest geniuses to participate in the friendly spar, it was still questionable whether or not they would be able to obtain even 2 slots. Since that was the case, they might as well place their bets on Zhang Xian and pray for a miracle. Considering the unthinkable feats that the latter had pulled off in the past, it was not out of the question. It seems like this is our only option at the moment. Division Head Wei took a look around, but Zhang Xian was not in sight, so he asked, "Oh right, where is Principal Zhang?" He just obtained his 7-star physician and appraiser emblem, and he said that he would be paying a visit to the Master Teacher Pavilion to apply for his promotion to 7-star Master Teacher, Hall Master Xing replied. Promotion to 7-star Master Teacher. The duo was slightly taken aback by those words. We invited you to train our combat masters, and yet, after turning all of them into lunatics, you even ran off to the Master Teacher Pavilion by yourself. Isn't this a little too much? The two division heads looked up into the sky as well, and a very long time later, a deep sigh escaped from their mouths. Just as Hall Master Xing had said, Zhang Xian was currently in the Master Teacher Pavilion. To him, training the combat masters was just a minor issue. What was more important for him was to be promoted to 7-star Master Teacher. He needed that promotion in order to vie for the nomination slot to the Sanctum of Sages and find Luo Ruoxin. This was the only chance he had. Otherwise, once Luo Ruoxin was married in the 3rd month of the next year, everything would be over. Walking through the vast hall of the master-teacher pavilion, Zhang Xian headed straight for Wu Shi's residence. Due to him having cleared the Empire building, he could apply for his promotion to 7-star master-teacher directly without undergoing the examination. It would be troublesome to explain that matter to the others, so he decided to find Wu Shi immediately and have the latter clear it for him. Before Zhang Xian could enter Wu Shi's residence, he heard the voice of an old man from within the room. Wu Shi, if it wasn't for Vice Pavilion Master Tian noticing the trap laid by the otherworldly demons, our Master-Teacher Pavilion might not exist. Yet, you had him captured over the trivial matter of slandering a 6-star Master-Teacher. Don't you think that you are making a mountain out of a molehill? Chapter 1178, Today, one of us shall fall. Pavilion Master Go, Hall Master Xing of the Combat Master Hall and I witnessed this matter with our own eyes. There is concrete evidence to prove it. Wu Shi anxiously exclaimed. You said that there is concrete evidence to prove this matter. The old man spoke once more. As a master teacher, you should know better than to blindly trust your eyes. You have to carefully investigate the issue in order to discern fact from fiction, not to mention, this matter involves a Vice Pavilion Master. If we go by your judgment and rule that our Vice Pavilion Master attempted to frame a 6-star Master Teacher, what will become of the reputation of our Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion? This. Wu Shi's voice grew slightly hesitant. In order for the local Master Teacher Pavilion to maintain order in the region, reputation was of utmost importance. If it was made known that a Vice Pavilion Master had tried to oppress a lower-ranked Master Teacher, the credibility of the entire Master Teacher Pavilion would be doubted, and they would become the laughingstock of the world. Wu Shi paused for a moment before responding. Pavilion Master Go, I understand that our reputation is important, but even more so is fairness. As Master Teachers, we should conduct ourselves properly and remain neutral. If we side with our own Master Teachers for the sake of our reputation, how can we be qualified to pass judgment upon others? It was true that the reputation of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion would be sullied if Vice Pavilion Master Tian was convicted for the current accusations. However, if it was discovered that their Master Teacher Pavilion had willfully sided with their own men, it would cast doubt over the leadership of the Master Teachers over the Master Teacher continent. Fairness? Are you trying to tell me that your words are the very embodiment of fairness? What I heard is that Vice Pavilion Master Tian has been wronged instead. The old man harumphed coldly. Tian Qing, recount the matters that happened yesterday to me once more. Yes. Vice Pavilion Master Tian said from within the room. It's like this. King Zhongqing is in charge of the defenses of the city, and after capturing the vice-head of the Hongyuan Empire Poison Hall, he managed to acquire critical intelligence regarding the Poison Hall and successfully led an expedition to eradicate it. On top of that, he also learned that there was a particularly formidable poison master known as Sun Chang hiding within the city, and there was a very good chance that the latter's existence could place mankind in danger. After investigating the matter, he found that Sun Chang happened to be Zhang Xian's butler. Given that a master teacher was involved in the matter, he knew that he could not act recklessly, so he came to seek my assistance in the matter. Thus, I invited Zhang Xian over to King Zhongqing's manor in my name, but not only did Zhang Xian refuse to cooperate with the investigation, he even forcefully freed Sun Chang and made a move against the both of us. Made a move against the both of you? Wu Shi's eyes shot up in displeasure. Vice Pavilion Master Tian, don't you think that your words are ludicrous? Principal Zhang is a Saint Tu Dan pinnacle cultivator whereas you are a half-leaving aperture realm expert. Are you trying to tell us that Principal Zhang is so foolish as to pick a fight against someone more than 2 cultivation realms stronger than him? He could not tell anyone about Zhang Xian's identity as a celestial master teacher, but that did not mean that he would not fight against anyone who dared to frame him. The one who has attacked me wasn't Zhang Xian himself but a cauldron in his possession. The cauldron is a Saint intermediate tier artifact, and it wields strength comparable to mine, Vice Pavilion Master Tian replied. That only discredits your story further. Despite being a master teacher, you aren't able to match a mere Saint Intermediate tier cauldron? As powerful as a Saint Intermediate tier artifact was, without a person to drive it, it was unable to bring out its full prowess. For someone as powerful as Vice Pavilion Master Tian to be unable to match a mere Saint Intermediate tier artifact, wasn't this a joke in itself? Fine. Vice Pavilion Master Tian harumphed coldly. Since you insist that I have attempted to frame Zhang Xian, let me ask you this, do I have any reason to pick on him? This. Wu Shi are stumped. I am the vice-head of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, as well as a 7-star Master Teacher. In terms of standing, he's nowhere near me. Do you think that it makes any sense for me to put my career as a Master Teacher on the line just to deal with a mere principal of a Master Teacher Academy whom I have no connections whatsoever with? Vice Pavilion Master Tian argued. This was exactly what had confounded Wu Shi as well. He could not understand why Vice Pavilion Master Tian would make a move against Zhang Xian either. A person who was seemingly superior to Zhang Xian every way, at least on the surface. He should not have any reason to deal with Zhang Xian. This was the missing piece of the puzzle that he had been struggling to find all along. Wu Rufeng, what do you have to say? Pavilion Master Go said coldly. While I have no idea why Vice Pavilion Master Tian would deal with Principal Zhang, it's a fact that King Zhongqing and Vice Pavilion Master Tian were making a move on him when we arrived on the scene. If we were just a second slower, Principal Zhang would have been a dead man by now. Countless master teachers and combat masters witnessed that with their own eyes, so if Pavilion Master Go doubts my words, I can bring them over to testify before you. Furthermore, the vice-head of the Poison Hall whom Vice Pavilion Master Tian spoke about has already confessed that King Zhongqing and Vice Pavilion Master Tian forced him into complying with them to frame Principal Zhang. Is the vice-head of the Poison Hall you spoke about Ming Zhen? Pavilion Master Go asked. That's right. Pavilion Master Go harumphed coldly. He died last night. He's dead. But he's in the prison cell of the Master Teacher Pavilion. How could he have died? Wu Shi could not believe his ears. How am I supposed to know that? You were the one who captured him, and now you are telling me you do not know why he died in the Master Teacher Pavilion. Don't you think that you should be the one explaining the matter to me? Pavilion Master Go replied in a frosty tone. Pavilion Master Go, are you doubting me? Wu Shi's eyes widened in disbelief. It's not that I want to doubt you, but think about what has happened. Do you think that it's possible for me to not doubt you? You claimed that Chen Zhe has betrayed the Master Teacher Pavilion and requested for permission to capture and investigate him, and I granted you permission for that. Yet, he passed away in your custody. Given how secure the Master Teacher Pavilion is, there is no one who could have gotten to him other than you. If you had not used torture on him to force a confession, how could he have died? Furthermore, I have also investigated the affairs of that Zhang Xian, and you seem to have gone through a life-and-death situation with him. Considering the deep ties between the both of you, I cannot help but suspect that you are intentionally siding with him in order to protect him, perhaps even making a false testimony in his favor. Pavilion Master Go harumphed. It hasn't been long since you have been promoted to a Vice Pavilion Master, so I understand that you might be eager to prove yourself to replace Vice Pavilion Master Tian. But no matter what you do, you need evidence. Look at the mess you have caused, and you still expect me to believe you? Seeing that Pavilion Master Go was doubting him, Wu Shi anxiously explained himself. I swear on my name as a master teacher that I have been perfectly impartial in this matter, and I have no interest in usurping Vice Pavilion Master Tian's position. Enough. I do not wish to talk about this matter anymore. I don't care how the both of you fight with one another, but you had better not do anything that will harm the reputation of our Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion. Pavilion Master Go interjected coldly. It has been 500 years since I became the Pavilion Master, and while I have not accomplished anything outstanding my time, I have not erred in my leadership either. It's already nearing my retirement date, and I hope to leave the Master Teacher Pavilion in peace. I do not want to retire as a laughingstock of the town, so I do not want to see anything happen till then. You hear me? Not expecting Pavilion Master Go to suddenly pin such a severe accusation on him, Wushi panicked. Pavilion Master Go, I am really not doing this for power. While I have braved through a life-and-death situation with Principal Zhang, I would not dream of willfully siding with him over something as important as this. Enough. I have already said that I do not want to interfere in the matters between the both of you. You can do whatever you like, just do not make our master-teacher pavilion appear to be a joke before others. But... Indignant, Wushi gritted his teeth, but seeing that Pavilion Master Go was unwilling to listen to his words, he could only clench his fists and reluctantly reply. Fine, I understand. That had better be the case. Alright, send a man to bring Zhang Xian over here right now to clear things up. If he's willing to listen, I can still consider giving him the benefit of the doubt. Otherwise, just on the grounds of insubordination alone, I will have him condemned for his entire life. Pavilion Master Go instructed. However, before he could finish his words, a voice suddenly sounded. There's no need to send anyone. I'm already here. Following which, a young man walked in. Zhang Xian. He had only gone there to take the 7-star master teacher examination, but who would have thought that he would hear those words instead? He could almost feel his blood boiling from the rage within him. Initially, he had thought that Pavilion Master Go had only been blinded by the words of Vice Pavilion Master Tian, but as he listened on, he had realized that the other party was just an incompetent superior who did not want the pot to be stirred so that he could retire in peace. Horrified by Zhang Xian's sudden arrival, Wushi exclaimed in shock, Principal Zhang. From the earlier conversation, he could tell that Pavilion Master Go was deeply displeased with Zhang Xian. This was truly a bad moment for the fellow to appear. If Pavilion Master Go were to pass a judgment on the fellow in a rage, the fellow could very well be doomed. At the same time, a cruel glint flashed across Vice Pavilion Master Tian Qing's eyes as he hurriedly stepped forward and said, Pavilion Master Go, this young man over here is the person who framed me, the principal of the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy, Zhang Xian. You are Zhang Xian. Pavilion Master Go narrowed his eyes threateningly. How dare a mere 6-star master teacher like you eavesdrop in our conversation? You audacious brat. Audacious? I don't think I am as audacious as you are. Zhang Xian replied with a voice that was freezing like a winter's night. What did you say? Pavilion Master Go smacked the table out of rage as a powerful aura burst forth menacingly from him. As the head of the regional master teacher pavilion, his standing was unmatched by anyone in the Qingyuan Empire. Yet, a pesky principal of a small master teacher academy had actually dared to speak to him in such a manner. This was a complete lack of respect for his elders, a blatant breach of the formalities among master teachers. Don't you have a clear idea as to what I just said? Facing the other party's wrath, Zhang Xian did not show a hint of worry or anxiety. With eyes filled with nothing but apathy, he said, after so many years, you should know Wushi's temperament better than anyone else. Vice Pavilion Master Tian has aided King Zhongqing in a scheme against me and my butler, and yet, instead of investigating the matter, you chose to side with Vice Pavilion Master Tian blindly in order to protect yourself, even coming over here to berate and put down Wushi. Are you really that blind, or has water gotten into your head? How in the world can the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion be so unfortunate as to get a pavilion master as incompetent and useless as you? Principal Zhang. Not expecting the good-tempered Zhang Xian to actually criticize Pavilion Master Go openly, Wushi was nearly scared of his wits. From the very start, Pavilion Master Go already had a bad impression of the other party. After saying these words, there was no longer room for reconciliation. You impertinent scoundrel, how dare a mere 6-star master teacher like you insult our pavilion master? Pavilion Master Go, I shall have him apprehended for breaching the formalities of master teachers right now and cripple his cultivation. Vice Pavilion Master roared furiously as he charged forward to nab Zhang Xian. Qing Tian, you dare! Wushi bellowed furiously as he quickly stepped forward to protect Zhang Xian. There's no need for that. Zhang Xian replied coldly as he waved his hand lightly. Pang! Before Vice Pavilion Master Tian could process what was going on, he was already smacked into the wall. Following which, Zhang Xian slowly advanced step by step, and with a gaze as sharp as daggers, he spoke with a voice that resounded clearly throughout the entire Qingyuan city. I have walked here step by step from Tianxian Kingdom, and no one has ever dared to frame me for anything before. I, Zhang Xian, as a 6-star master teacher and the principal of the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy, hereby request permission from the headquarters to crash the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion. Today, one of us shall fall. Chapter 1179, It seems he is called Zhang Xian in the appraiser hall. How is it? My medicine is quite effective, right? In the lounge, Elder Qi spoke to the young man before him with a smile. Looking into the mirror and seeing that his dashing appearance had finally been restored, the young man heaved a sigh of relief and clasped his fist. Elder Qi, thank you for your help. If not for your assistance, who knows how long it would have taken for me to recover. There's no need to stand on ceremony. It's my responsibility as a physician to help those in need, Elder Qi replied kindly. Jiuxiao, you really mustn't act recklessly in the future. Don't push yourself to do what is beyond your capability. Being embarrassed is just a small matter, but it would truly be a huge disaster if you were to lose your identity as an appraiser over it, Guild Leader Mu advised worriedly. It went without saying that the young man was Zhang Jiuxiao. The previous night, while the poison that Zhang Xian had prescribed him was effective in eliminating the spirit that had taken root within him, it had caused his face to swell, leaving him unable to meet anyone. Thus, he could only stay overnight in the appraiser hall. That morning, the swelling had still shown no signs of subsiding, so he could only invite the old guild leader of the physician guild, Elder Qi, over to treat him. While Elder Qi's enemy wielded great influence, considering that it was in the middle of the day and the Master Teacher Pavilion was in the vicinity, his enemy would surely not be so brazen as to assault him at that moment. I understand. Zhang Jiuxiao nodded in response. He had stepped out in the hope of winning the respect of others by deciphering the seal on the painting, only to end up leaving himself in a pitiful state. When he had looked into the mirror and seen how his dashing face had been warped hideously, just recalling the matter was enough to send tears to his eyes. It was fortunate that he had been in the appraiser hall, so none of his fans had been able to see the state that he was in. Otherwise, he would have been too embarrassed to walk on the streets of Qingyuan City ever again. Of course, more important was the rule surrounding appraisers that only allowed them to make 3 appraisal errors in their entire career. While the affair yesterday had not really been considered an appraisal, it had happened before many eyes, and once others learned of the matter, it would become a stain on his records. It's all because of that Zhang Xian. He clearly knew how to decipher the seal, but he chose not to speak just so to embarrass me. Recalling that seemingly innocent yet revolting smile of that fellow, rage swiftly surged through Zhang Jiuxiao's veins. That fellow had already embarrassed him once on the heart-tempering bridge, and he had been banking on that matter to vie back some dignity. Yet, who would have expected that he would be beaten further down into the ground? He must have done it intentional, no doubt about it. As innocent and honest as that fellow looked on the surface, his instincts told him that the other party had done it intentionally to humiliate him in public. As stifled as Zhang Jiuxiao was, as a 7-star master teacher, he was still able to conceal his emotions perfectly, so neither Elder Qi nor Guild Leader Mu noticed his inner thoughts. Elder Qi, can you tell me what poison my face is afflicted with? Zhang Jiuxiao asked. It's a particularly potent poison, possibly reaching the level of grade 7. If it was not for the fact that I have been studying poison for the past few years, I might not have been able to treat you, Elder Qi replied with a frown. It was not for no reason that he had chosen to flee to Jingyuan City after he had been poisoned by his enemy. He had heard that a poison hall was located there, so he had decided to try his luck. In the 20 years he had spent there, while he had failed to cure his poison, he had managed to pick up several means concerning poisons through interacting with a few local poison masters, which had allowed him to suppress the poison within him considerably. Thanks to that, he had been able to survive long enough to meet Zhang Xian. His experiences had granted him a deep insight into poison. As long as a poison was not particularly potent, he would be able to resolve it with ease. Hearing those words, Zhang Jiuxiao could not help but mutter aloud in astonishment, the prescription that Zhang Shi gave me was actually a poison? Could it be that Zhang Shi is a poison master? The poison hall maintained a strict confidentiality over their poison formulas, so for Zhang Xian to prescribe one to him so easily. Could it be that he was a poison master? Hearing a familiar name, Elder Qi could not help but ask, "May I know who the Zhang Shi you mentioned is?" Ah, Zhou Xiao must be referring to the 6-star master teacher from the Hongyuan Empire who has recently arrived in our city, Zhang Xian, guild leader Mu replied. Zhang Xian. You all know him too. He's my benefactor. He's truly an incredible figure, isn't he? Not only does he wield phenomenal capabilities in the way of medicine, which far exceed my own, more importantly, he holds compassion in his heart. There's no way a person like him could be a poison master, Elder Qi replied. Benefactor? His capabilities in the way of medicine far exceed yours? Zhang Jiuxiao was dumbstruck by those words. That fellow has a soul depth higher than me. Fine, I'll accept it. That fellow's capability as an appraiser is higher than mine. Fine, I'll accept that, too. But for his capability in the way of medicine to be more formidable than mine as well. Just who is the 7-star master teacher here? Ever since meeting that fellow, it seems like I have been leaping from one nightmare straight into another. Zhang Jiuxiao heaved a sigh of relief. It's fortunate that my master teacher rank is higher than his, or else I would really be utterly outmatched by him. But before he could finish his words, a voice reminiscent of the rumbling of thunder suddenly boomed in the air. I, Zhang Xian, as a 6-star master teacher and the principal of the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy, hereby request permission from the headquarters to crash the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion. Today, one of us shall fall. Hearing the news, Zhang Jiuxiao nearly collapsed to the ground. What? He's intending to crash the Master Teacher Pavilion? Pavilion crashing was the act of challenging an entire Master Teacher Pavilion single-handedly. Whether one had a conflict with a superior Master Teacher or had committed a sin, as long as one had not betrayed humanity, one would be able to absolve oneself of blame through successfully crashing the Master Teacher Pavilion. To put it in simpler terms, once a master teacher had successfully crashed a master teacher pavilion that they had a conflict with, the headquarters would no longer pursue the matter. It was just a moment ago that Zhang Jiuxiao had consoled himself with the fact that he still had his master teacher rank to fall back on against Zhang Xian, but then the latter suddenly challenged the entire master teacher pavilion. Was this for real? Rushing out of the room, Zhang Jiuxiao saw a master teacher emblem flying straight into the sky before floating silently. Deep within the master teacher pavilion, from the teacher acknowledgement hall, a pure and ancient aura surged into the sky and shrouded the emblem. 2 words slowly morphed into appearance. Permission granted. The headquarters actually agreed to his request. A 6-star master teacher is going to challenge a 7-star master teacher pavilion branch? Is this for real? This is going to make history. If Zhang Shi successfully carries out the pavilion crashing, the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion will lose all shred of its dignity and honor, and Pavilion Master Go will become a laughingstock of all master teachers. Guild leader Mu and Elder Qi were dumbfounded by the happenings before them. Teacher, Elder Qi, as a master teacher of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, I have a responsibility to guard its honor as well, so I'll be taking my leave. Farewell. Zhang Jiuxiao clasped his fist before hurriedly flying back to the Master Teacher Pavilion. Pavilion crashing was as good as causing trouble on the home turf of the regional master teachers. As one of the master teacher of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, he had to rush back to protect it. Zhang Xian, No matter how talented you are, if you wish to bring down the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, you will have to get past me first, Zhang Jiuxiao muttered menacingly with narrowed eyes. It was about time for him to return the favor for the two-faced slaps that he had suffered from the other party. In the Qingyuan Empire Royal Palace, a pig-faced middle-aged man was lying on a bed, panting heavily. King Zhongqing. After being viciously pummeled for an entire night, while he had managed to suppress the poison within his body for the time being, he had nearly been crippled in the process. If not for his superior physical resilience and the abundant supply of pills, he might have long died from the relentless beating. In order to satisfy his needs, more than 20 guards had already had their turn with him, and every single one of their hands had swollen up and was trembling from frailty. Butler Qin walked to King Zhongqing and politely inquired, "Old master, how are you feeling at the moment?" "I'm still fine for the moment." "Right, remember to get rid of those guards who pummeled me. No one can learn of my condition, got it?" King Zhongqing harumphed callously. "Don't worry, old master. I have already made arrangements for that," Butler Qin respectfully replied. "Good." Struggling to sit up, King Zhongqing began meditating to recuperate from his injuries. It took a while before the pain from the beating he had sustained finally alleviated. Turning his head toward Butler Qin once more, he asked, "Is there any news from Vice Pavilion Master Tian?" "I have already informed Pavilion Master Go of the situation surrounding Vice Pavilion Master Tian as you have instructed me to." At this point, Butler Qin could not help but hesitate for a moment before continuing. "Old Master, will Pavilion Master Go really save Vice Pavilion Master Tian? The crime of framing another master teacher is a serious matter. Will it really be worthwhile for him to protect Vice Pavilion Master Tian?" "Don't worry, I know that old man very well. He'll definitely save Vice Pavilion Master Tian." King Zhongqing sneered coldly. "As long as Vice Pavilion Master Tian remains in power, no one will be able to touch me. Humph, I will make sure Wu Rufeng and Zhang Xian pay the price for their actions." "I see." Butler Qin heaved a sigh of relief. He pondered for a brief moment before asking once more, "Old master, what is Zhang Xian's background? How can a 6-star master teacher manage to corner you and Vice Pavilion Master Tian to such an extent? Regardless of where he is from, there's no way he will be able to escape with his life after offending Vice Pavilion Master Tian." King Zhongqing waved his hand leisurely. "You do not have to worry about this matter anymore, he will be a goner soon enough. Most likely, either today or tomorrow, he will be apprehended by the Master Teacher Pavilion and die an untimely death in the cells." However, before he could finish his words, a resounding voice echoed deafeningly in the air, shaking the entire royal palace. "I, Zhang Xian, as a 6-star master teacher and the principal of the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy, hereby request permission from the headquarters to crash the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion. Today, one of us shall fall." King Zhongqing was taken aback for a brief moment before hearty laughter boomed from his mouth. He was laughing so intensely that tears were beginning to form in his eyes. A 6-star master teacher like him actually dares to crash the Master Teacher Pavilion? Ha ha ha, this must be the most hilarious joke that I have heard my entire life. He's bringing about his own doom. Given the prowess of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, not even an 8-star low-tier master teacher would dare challenge it. For a 6-star master teacher to dream of crashing it, he sure likes to dream big. There was no master teacher who was unaware of the difficulty in pavilion crashing. It was a nigh impossible feat to accomplish, and throughout the long history of the master teacher continent, only a small handful of top-notch prodigies had ever succeeded in accomplishing it. Yet, that fellow was so conceited as to think that he could succeed in it. It seemed like they had been worrying over that fellow for nothing. Just as King Zhongqing was laughing heartily, Emperor Chu Tianqing suddenly walked into the room with widened strides. "Your Majesty." Overwhelmed with excitement, King Zhongqing immediately reported that Zhang Xian has foolishly decided to crash the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion. With this, his days are already numbered. I have heard the declaration, too. That will be one less worry for us. Emperor Chu Tianqing nodded, but there was still a hint of worry in his eyes. As the emperor of a country, he always considered the worst-case scenario so that he would not be caught off guard by any abrupt changes in the situation. As unlikely as it was, he could not shake off the sliver of doubt nudging his mind. Thus, he could not help himself from asking, is there anyone who has succeeded in crashing the master-teacher pavilion before? I'm not too sure either. However, we can call Bai Shi over to ask him, King Zhongqing replied. While the master-teacher pavilion did not interfere in the affairs of the empire that they were stationed in, the royal family would usually recruit some unaffiliated master-teachers to bolster their ranks. Master-teachers had a choice to decide whether they wanted to join the regional master-teacher pavilion or not. If they joined, they would be granted several privileges, but in exchange, they would have a responsibility to the master-teacher pavilion as well. On the other hand, they could also choose to remain unaffiliated. The Bai Shi whom King Zhongqing spoke of was one of the unaffiliated master-teachers, and he was currently serving as the imperial master-teacher of the Qingyuan Empire. Emperor Chu Tianqing nodded before sending a subordinate to invite Bai Shi over. Not too long later, an elder walked into the room. Bai Shi, have you heard of any master-teachers who have successfully crashed a master-teacher pavilion? Hold on a moment, Your Majesty. I'll have my friend look into the matter, Bai Shi replied. Unaffiliated with the regional master-teacher pavilion, he was unable to access its resources as he liked. Thus, he could only ask his friend to do it in his stead. Wang. Not too long later, the jade token in his palm lit up. Bai Shi swiftly took a look at it before clasping his fist. Your Majesty, there are indeed cases where a master-teacher pavilion has been successfully crashed before. There are 3 such men in history who have succeeded in pulling off this feat, 3 men. Hearing that such a small handful of people had succeeded in the past, both King Zhongqing and Emperor Chu Tianqing heaved a sigh of relief in unison. It had been several dozen millenniums since the master-teacher pavilion first came into existence. Countless geniuses must have come and gone throughout the many years of its existence, and despite that, only 3 had ever successfully crashed a master-teacher pavilion. This was more than sufficient to show the difficulty of the task. Just by this fact alone, it was impossible for Zhang Xian to successfully crash the Qingyuan Empire master-teacher pavilion. Out of curiosity, King Zhongqing asked, who are those 3 men? Do you have their names? I do. The first goes by the name of Luo Yuntian, and the second is Yuan Shi. They are both the old ancestors of sage clans, the Luo clan and Yuan clan respectively. What about the third person? Looking at the name written on the jade token, Bai Shi was visibly taken aback for a moment before he stuttered in astonishment, it seems he is called Zhang Xian. Chapter 1180, Zhang Xian vs. Zhang Jiuxiao, Gedeng. Both King Zhongqing and Emperor Chu Tianqing's hearts skipped a beat. Zhang Xian. Which Zhang Xian? Zhang Xian from Xianyuan Conferred Kingdom. Reading on, Bai Shi's lips began quivering in fear. After which, he became appointed as the principal of the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy. Considering how the previous declaration had resounded throughout Qingyuan city, they would have to have been deaf to not hear it. He had thought that the Zhang Xian person, whoever he was courting his own death, and yet, to think that the other party had a history of successfully crashing a master-teacher pavilion. He had thought that it was an ignorant novice, but it turned out to be an experienced veteran instead. The master-teacher pavilion in the Xianyuan Conferred Kingdom should be a 3-star branch at the very most, so it's not too surprising that he was able to successfully crash it. Do you think that he'll be able to crash our Qingyuan Empire master-teacher pavilion as well? King Zhongqing asked hesitantly. I can't say for sure. However, since he has a previous experience in pavilion crashing, I believe that he should understand how difficult the matter is. Since he dares to challenge the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, it is likely that he is confident that he will be able to successfully crash it, Bai Shi replied with an apprehensive frown. Overwhelmed with anxiety, King Zhongqing howled in desperation, "There's no way he can succeed. He mustn't succeed." Bai Shi shook his head and sighed deeply. "I don't know whether he'll succeed or not, but regardless of the results, the Qingyuan Empire Master-Teacher Pavilion can be said to be a goner already." Injustice was rife in the world, even within the Master-Teacher Pavilion. Despite the rules put in place by the Master-Teacher Pavilion, it was unable to avoid it altogether. Throughout history, many geniuses had fallen not at the hands of powerful enemies but from the schemes of their peers. The death of every single genius master-teacher was a huge loss to the Master-Teacher Pavilion, and it was in view of this that the Master-Teacher Pavilion had implemented the system of pavilion crashing to serve as an avenue for these geniuses to redress their grievances. Regardless of whether Zhang Xian succeeded or failed, the very fact that the headquarters had agreed to his request meant that the headquarters held Zhang Xian in high regard, and as a consequence of that, the Qingyuan Empire Master-Teacher Pavilion would be effectively plastered with a label of incompetence and mistreating rising prodigies. The headquarters would summon Pavilion Master Go for further investigation, and no matter how the investigation turned out, the latter's reputation would be ruined. "There's no way he can succeed. There's just no way." Pooh! King Zhongqing roared with clenched jaws when he suddenly felt a pain in his chest, and fresh blood burst through his lips. He quickly turned to Bai Shi and pleaded, "Quick, beat me. Beat me up with all your might. I need it. I need it right now." Bai Shi. Emperor Chu Tianqing. In the Qingyuan Empire Master-Teacher Pavilion. Seeing the two words in the sky, Wu Shi felt his vision darken. He did think that Pavilion Master Go had displayed a lack of fairness in this matter, but still, no matter what, this was where he had grown up and spent several centuries in. He already considered this place his home, and he could not bear to see someone wrecking it. However, he knew that it was already too late to say anything. Given the present circumstances, Zhang Xian had no choice but to choose this course of action. Zhang Xian was only a 6-star master teacher, whereas Pavilion Master Go was a 7-star master teacher, as well as the head of the regional master teacher pavilion. If the latter really attempted to indict him for some crime, the only way Zhang Xian could have possibly salvaged himself was through crashing the entire master teacher pavilion. Wu Shi stood in a daze for a long while, and all the frustrations and helplessness he felt within him eventually materialized in the form of a deep sigh. On the other hand, Pavilion Master Go was so angered by the course of events that his entire body was trembling in rage. Having served 500 years as the head of the Master Teacher Pavilion, he was already nearing his retirement age. He had thought that he could spend the end of his career in peace and retire with a perfect record, but who would have thought that he would actually end up stepping on a huge landmine at the final juncture? He knew that regardless of the outcome of the pavilion crashing, the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion's reputation was doomed to be sullied. Do you know what it means to crash a Master Teacher Pavilion? Suppressing the exploding rage within him, Pavilion Master Go glared at the young man before him with gritted teeth. "If looks could kill, the world would have withered there and then. You are asking me that question?" Humph. As if there was lightning within his eyes, Zhang Xian glared at Pavilion Master Go with a frightening gaze as he spoke. "For mankind, I, Zhang Xian, descended alone into the subterranean gallery to mend the seal leading to the otherworldly battlefield. For mankind, I hunted down the 10 kings of the Qingtian lineage one after another, averting a potential crisis. For mankind, I have groomed the students of the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy and granted them strength comparable to the combat masters. I have devoted my life to protecting mankind, putting myself in precarious situations time and time again, and I have never regretted my actions. And yet, the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion dares to humiliate me like this. I only hope that the headquarters give me an opportunity to redress my grievances. Since you are incompetent and useless, choosing to cover up for those who have sinned just to avoid stepping into muddied waters, I'll just have to use my own methods to resolve this matter. As for whether you are embarrassed by this matter or not, why should I care about that? Choked by Zhang Xian's words, Pavilion Master Go spurted a mouthful of blood. He had thought that the figure whom he was dealing with was a mere 6-star master teacher, and a few words of criticisms would surely have made the latter bow obediently before him. Never in his dreams had he expected the other party to be such a fearless troublemaker. Pavilion Master Go. I hate to say this, but you have really done wrong this time around. Wu Shi closed his eyes and shook his head. While others might have been unaware of it, he knew that the young man before him was a celestial master teacher and a celestial saint, a figure whose standing was on par with Kong Shi's. Putting aside the head of a branch, even the head of the master teacher pavilion headquarters would dare not humiliate the other party in such a manner. Humiliating a figure like that was no different from undermining the authority of the heavens. If the other party were to take such an insult lying down, how could he possibly stand dignified before the masses ever again? Hearing the words spoken by Wu Shi, Pavilion Master Go's face warped in fury, and he spat furiously through gritted teeth. You said that I have done wrong? Humph, do you think that it'll be that easy to crash our Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion? Sound the bells. Since things had already reached that point, there was no way that he would let the other party get away so easily. Dong 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 dong. Shortly after his bellow, for resounding chimes echoed from the depths of the Master Teacher Pavilion, indicating the arrival of a pavilion-crashing challenger. Hung long long. In just 15 minutes, all of the 6-star and 7-star master teachers had returned to the Master Teacher Pavilion with grim expressions on their faces, as if soldiers preparing to march onto the battlefield. There are 2 steps to pavilion crashing. Firstly, the challenger must defeat all the master teachers in the Master Teacher Pavilion. Secondly, the challenger must successfully clear the Master Teacher Tower. Currently, all of the 6-star and 7-star master teachers in our Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion are present here. If you wish to crash our pavilion, you will have to first trample past on their dignity. At which point, Pavilion Master Go slowly swept over the gathered master teachers with his gaze before bellowing authoritatively, Master Teachers of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, someone has come to challenge our dignity. What shall we do? Annihilate him. Make him learn that our Master Teacher Pavilion is not a place for him to fool around. How dare a 6-star Master Teacher act so brazenly as to challenge our Master Teacher Pavilion? See how I eradicate him with a flick of my hand. Upon understanding what was going on, the Master Teachers howled furiously. Seeing that morale was high among the Master Teachers, Pavilion Master Go nodded in satisfaction. Good. Let's begin then. There were dozens of thousands of 6-star master teachers in the Qingyuan Master Teacher Academy, and their might was no joking matter when combined together. No matter how talented or powerful Zhang Xian was, their forces were more than enough to grind him down eventually. Who will go first? Allow me. As a member of the Master Teacher Pavilion, I wish to strike down the brazen fool who dares challenge us. Shortly after those words were spoken, a loud whiz sounded from the air as a young man descended from the sky. Zhang Jiuxiao. He had just rushed over from the appraiser hall. Good. Pavilion Master Go nodded. Zhang Jiuxiao was the offspring of a sage clan, the Zhang clan. Even though he was just part of the side family, his talent was unrivaled by any other in the Qingyuan Empire. On top of that, as a 7-star master teacher, he had many means up his sleeves. Without a doubt, it would be a piece of cake for him to deal with Zhang Xian. Pavilion Master Go secretly sent a telepathic message to Zhang Jiuxiao. There's no need to show him mercy. Let him learn the heavy price he must pay for daring to crash our Master Teacher Pavilion. Pavilion Master Go, rest assured. I know what to do. With a frown, the aura surrounding Zhang Jiuxiao grew stronger and stronger as he turned to look at the young man not too far away with narrowed eyes. From the moment he met the fellow the day before, the fellow had embarrassed him time and time again. Since that was the case, he would resolve this humiliation once and for all with a fight. A duel between master teachers can come in many forms, a challenge of soul depth, a fight in supporting occupations, a direct showdown, a lecture. Since you are the challenger, I have the right to choose the type of challenge, Zhang Jiuxiao said as he walked confidently toward Zhang Xian before eventually stopping 5 meters in front of the latter. As the offspring of the Zhang clan, he had been able to take many shortcuts in his cultivation, resulting in his state of mind being less tempered than others. However, he was confident that his capabilities in all other aspects were top-notch, and he would not lose to anyone. Since that fellow had dared challenge the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, he would make that fellow learn that he was not to be trifled with. In no mood to entertain Zhang Jiuxiao, Zhang Xian waved his hands impatiently. Speak. I choose a showdown, a duel to pit our strength against one another. Zhang Jiuxiao sneered coldly. A duel was the most direct and easiest way for him to establish his superiority. As a member of the Zhang clan, he had cultivated many powerful battle techniques, so defeating a fellow whose cultivation was beneath his was truly no big deal. Jiuxiao, you mustn't. On the other hand, hearing that Zhang Jiuxiao was proposing to have a direct fight instead, Pavilion Master Go immediately recalled how Zhang Xian had sent Vice Pavilion Master Tian flying with a flick of his hand, so he quickly sent a telepathic message over anxiously. Since even a half-leaving Aperture Realm expert like Vice Pavilion Master Tian was no match for Zhang Xian, how could Zhang Jiuxiao possibly stand a chance? Zhang Jiuxiao shrugged the other party's worries away with a chuckle. Pavilion Master Go, rest assured. No matter what, I am an offspring of the Zhang clan. While my cultivation is only at St. 3 Dan Embryonic Soul Realm Pinnacle, my fighting prowess has already far exceeded that level. To be honest with you, I have never revealed my true strength before. As there was no peer who was a match for him, there had never been any need for him to use his full strength before. For the first time, he planned on displaying his true strength in public to teach Zhang Xian a lesson. Hong Long. His acupoints burst open simultaneously, and an overwhelming aura abruptly burst forth from him. In the blink of an eye, his cultivation had already exceeded the boundary of St. 3 Dan Pinnacle, reaching St. 4 Dan. Primordial Spirit Realm? When did Zhang Jiuxiao achieve a breakthrough? It seems like he has been concealing his true strength all along. To reach the Primordial Spirit Realm beneath 30, he is truly fearsome. He isn't the most formidable genius of our Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion for no reason. There's no way that 6-star Master Teacher can possibly be a match for him. Seeing Zhang Jiuxiao's cultivation surge to St. 4 Dan in an instant, everyone was taken aback for a moment before admiration and respect seeped into the depths of their eyes. Zhang Shi is so dashing. I knew that no one would be able to match him. At some point in time, the Millstone Bottom lady had arrived in the hall, and hiding behind a pillar, she peeked on Zhang Jiuxiao coyly with stars twinkling in her eyes. She knew that her idol was no ordinary person, but she had not expected him to be so extraordinary. Just by the momentum itself, he had already overwhelmed his opponent many times over. Watching this sight, her massive heart could not help but thump in excitement. Who? Zhang Jiuxiao's aura eventually stabilized at Primordial Spirit Realm primary stage. He clenched his fists tightly as he leisurely stretched his neck, causing crisp Jai. Jai sounds to echo in the room. After which, he turned to look at the young man before him with eyes filled with disdain. Let's begin. Are you certain you are ready? Zhang Xian asked indifferently. Indeed. If you wish to use a weapon, feel free to do so. I'll catch anything that you send at me with my bare hands and show you the unbreachable gap between a mortal like you and a true prodigy. Zhang Jiuxiao harumphed coldly as he channeled his Jinqi toward his hands, creating a golden shimmer around them. Weapon? A derisive smile emerged on Zhang Xian's lips as he said impatiently, I don't have time to waste on you. Since you are ready, I'll start now. He was extremely busy. Crashing the pavilion meant that one had to face all the master teachers associated with the Master Teacher Pavilion and overcome the many wills left behind by the preceding master teachers in the Master Teacher Tower. He had no additional time to waste on this fellow. I don't have time to waste on you either, so I'll end you in an instant. Seeing how Zhang Xian was taking him lightly, the final string of sanity within Zhang Jiuxiao's mind finally snapped, and with a furious roar, he dashed forward. You want to end me? Try it then. Without even bothering to dodge Zhang Jiuxiao's attack, Zhang Xian raised his head, and a voice reminiscent of the crisp chime of a bell boomed. Kneel down. Boom. It was as if thunder had rumbled within the room. In an instant, the momentum that Zhang Jiuxiao had built up for his offense vanished without a trace, and before anyone could process what was going on, the other party abruptly plummeted from the sky and crashed to the ground. With his kneecaps firmly fixed onto the ground, Zhang Jiuxiao kneeled before Zhang Xian with indignation and frenzy written on his face. Chapter 1181, You think I dare not pummel you? What? This? How is this possible? Everyone's face warped in shock. The millstone-bottom lady even fell to the ground in utter disbelief. The idol whom she had revered for so long, was actually unable to even withstand a bellow from the other party, kneeling down without the slightest bit of resistance. What in the world was going on? In an instant, the faith that she had carried for so long abruptly shattered. No, this can't be. While the crowd was staring at the situation with mouths agape, veins were popping up on Zhang Jiuxiao's forehead as frenzy overtook his mind. He was a genius. A peerless genius in the Qingyuan Empire. How could he be subdued in a single shout? How could he kneel before another man so embarrassingly? You bastard, I'll slaughter you. Roaring furiously, Zhang Jiuxiao pushed his hand against the ground forcefully and flew into the air. After which, he charged forward furiously once more. He had come here to prove himself, not to be humiliated once more. Seeing how the other party was still doggedly coming after him, Zhang Xian bellowed once more. Scram! Pada! Zhang Jiuxiao plummeted from the sky, and this time, his body scrambled on the ground and fled away hurriedly. Jiuxiao, be careful. Your state of mind is your core weakness, and that is why he's using demonic tunes against you. As long as you shut off your hearing organs, you should be able to cope with his offense easily. Pavilion Master Go anxiously sent a telepathic message over. While others were still wondering why Zhang Jiuxiao was listening to Zhang Xian so obediently, Pavilion Master Go had already fully comprehended the situation. Zhang Jiuxiao's greatest weakness was his state of mind, which resulted in him being powerless before the other party's demonic tunes. It could be said that Zhang Xian had already identified Zhang Jiuxiao's weaknesses, and he was playing on them to his advantage. Hearing those words, Zhang Jiuxiao swiftly awakened from his frenzied state, and gritting his teeth, he forcefully shut off his sense of hearing. As expected, the effects of the demonic tune dulled significantly, allowing him to wrestle back control over his body. Then, with a swift leap, he dashed straight toward Zhang Xian to launch an assault. On the other hand, seeing that Zhang Jiuxiao was determined to court his death, Zhang Xian impatiently flicked his finger. Pang! Ah! A scream of agony echoed loudly in the air before Zhang Jiuxiao was smacked away like a pesky fly. He crashed right into the wall of the building before dangling weakly up there. Zhang Jiuxiao was no weakling, but he was still far from a match for him. After sending Zhang Jiuxiao flying, Zhang Xian turned his attention back to the remaining master teachers, and placing his hands behind his back, he said, to save some time, why don't all of you come at me together? He wants to challenge all of us simultaneously. Is he insane? He's only at St. Tu Dan Pinnacle, even a leaving Aperture Realm cultivator wouldn't be able to withstand our combined offense. Hearing his words, everyone nearly lost their mind for an instant. Everyone who had gathered within the room was a 6-star master teacher at minimum, and there were more than 10,000 of them there. Even the weakest of them was at half-saint realm, and their combined might was sufficient to tear apart the heavens and earth. Putting aside a mere spiritual perception realm pinnacle cultivator, even a leaving Aperture Realm expert like Hall Master Xing would not have stood a chance against them. None of you are going to make a move. Fine, allow me to go first then. Too lazy to waste his breath anymore, Zhang Xian walked up to the crowd, and his voice began echoing resoundingly in the minds of everyone gathered in the room. The key to cultivation lies in devotion, and the crux of the devotion to one's path lies in earnestness. Only with an earnest heart can one accomplish. Zhang Xian began lecturing. What is he up to? He seems to be lecturing about the essence of cultivation. Huh? Isn't he going to fight us? Why is he conducting a lecture all of a sudden? The crowd had thought that the other party was about to dash right into their midst and fight them with all his might. Yet, contrary to their expectations, not only did he not make a move, he even began imparting an interpretation of cultivation to them, leaving every single one of them dumbfounded. Just as they were perplexed, Pavilion Master Goes anxiously shouted, "Everyone, be careful. He's using the impartation of heaven's will. He's planning on making all of you submit to him." To be honest, Pavilion Master Go was truly feeling deeply frightened at this point. Even a genius as talented as Zhang Jiuxiao, dubbed as the #1 prodigy of the Qingyuan Empire, had ended up falling from a mere bellow from Zhang Xian. From just this, it could be seen that Zhang Xian's soul depth was comparable to his own, if not above it. Such formidable soul depth paired with the impartation of heaven's will, in a group battle, there was no weapon more devastating than this. Even poison masters were not as fearsome as that. Against a poison master, the most one could lose was one's life. However, against a master teacher's impartation of heaven's will, one would lose control of oneself and become the other party's student. Impartation of heaven's will. That does seem to be the case. I want to struggle against him, but what he is saying is really true. If I cultivate according to his words, my cultivation will surely be greatly enhanced within a short period of time. I really couldn't have imagined that there is such an exquisite jinqi circulation method in the world. This is too scary, too scary. Hearing Pavilion Master Go's bellow, the crowd immediately attempted to struggle free of Zhang Xian's impartation of heaven's will, but their minds and bodies just would not listen to them. Instinctively, they desired to learn, and the other party's teachings were simply too valuable for them to miss out on. The rest of you, feel free to make a move on him. I'll listen to his words a bit first. Wait a moment. Don't do it now. Let him finish this part before making a move. If any of you dare to touch him, I'll pummel you into the ground. This portion happens to be regarding the flaw of my cultivation. If I can resolve this problem, I will surely be able to make a breakthrough to become a 7-star high-tier master teacher. Such words could be heard amid the crowd. In the blink of an eye, the tense atmosphere had abruptly calmed down, turning into a leisurely academic exchange. Watching the inconceivable sight before him, Pavilion Master Go felt crazed. He did not even notice it when he plucked out several strands of his beard. My brothers, wake up. He's crashing our master teacher pavilion, this isn't the time to be learning from him. Pavilion Master Go, at this rate, all of the master teachers of our Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion are going to become his students. Vice Pavilion Master Tian exclaimed with a pale face. He had just barely recovered from the other party's previous blow when he saw such a sight before him, and he was nearly shocked speechless. I know, but there's no way to break his impartation of heaven's will unless he makes a mistake in his teachings. Pavilion Master Go's face reddened in anxiety. The impartation of heaven's will was a resonance induced by the alignment of one's teachings with the essence of the world. If there was the slightest error in one's teachings, the resonance would immediately be dispelled, and the crowd would recover from the trance they were in and regain their rationality. Are we to wait helplessly for him to make an error? Will he even make an error? Since he dares use the impartation of heaven's will, he must have done his homework in advance, Vice Pavilion Master Tian said anxiously. But what else can we do? Simple. We should just have Zhang Jiuxiao assault him from behind. In any case, they were supposed to be dueling with one another, and besides, he was the one who asked everyone to go at him a moment ago. Thus, this cannot be considered an unfair move. As long as we pull it off, we'll will be able to break his impartation of heaven's will, and by then, it will be impossible for him to successfully crash the pavilion, Vice Pavilion Master Tian sneered coldly. Pavilion Master Go hesitated for a brief moment before nodding. Very well. If he, as the head of the Master-Teacher Pavilion, were to break the other party's impartation of heaven's will forcefully, he would surely be despised and mocked for his actions. However, it was different for Zhang Jiuxiao. In the first place, he was supposed to be in a duel with Zhang Xian, and as fellow peers, he did not have to pay as much attention to his standing compared to Pavilion Master Go. Thus, it would not be a big deal if he made a move. Having made up his mind, Pavilion Master Go quickly sent a telepathic message to Zhang Jiuxiao. As Zhang Jiuxiao had shut off his hearing organs, he was not as affected by the effects of the impartation of heaven's will as the others. As soon as he heard Pavilion Master Go's orders, a cold glint flashed through his eyes, and he nodded. I'll do it right now. The single flick that had sent him flying had left him utterly humiliated. No matter what, he had to get one back on Zhang Xian. Voila! Flicking his wrist, 2 long swords and 4 sabers appeared before his eyes, each of them commanding a powerful presence. 2 Saint Intermediate Tier and 4 Saint Low Tier artifacts. Even Pavilion Master Go only had a single Saint Intermediate Tier artifact in his possession, and yet, Zhang Jiuxiao was able to whip out 2 of them in a single breath along with 4 other Saint Low Tier artifacts. His fortune was truly astounding. Go! Zhang Jiuxiao waved his hand furiously as he commanded his weapons. Voila! The 6 weapons flew straight toward the lecturing Zhang Xian. Zhang Jiuxiao was not intending to kill Zhang Xian but to interrupt his impartation of heaven's will. A typical Saint Intermediate Tier weapon wielded strength comparable to a primordial spirit realm expert, whereas a typical Saint Low Tier weapon wielded strength comparable to a spiritual perception realm cultivator. Against the simultaneous assault of all 6 weapons, even Vice Pavilion Master Tian would be pressured to deal with them. This was the true strength that Zhang Jiuxiao wielded. The origin of his confidence also lay in these 6 weapons. With them, there was no way any of his peers would be able to match him. Not expecting Zhang Jiuxiao to be so despicable as to assault Zhang Xian at this moment, Wu Shi shouted in a panic, "Zhang Shi, be careful." Considering that Zhang Xian was in the midst of crashing the pavilion, Wu Shi was not allowed to make a move to help the other party, or else that would be flouting the rules. Hula! The 6 weapons flew forth in an arc, heading right for Zhang Xian's back. However, the latter continued lecturing the crowd, as if he was oblivious to the movements of the weapons. Channeling the inner breath into the internal organs, like the spirit of a weapon enforcing its body. Other than tempering its body, a weapon can grow stronger through tempering its spirit as well. Even among Saint Intermediate Tier artifacts, there are some that wield strength comparable to a primordial spirit realm expert, and others are on par with leaving aperture realm cultivators. This difference is not a result of the usage of inferior materials in its crafting or lack of tempering, but the weakness of the weapon's spirit. A weak spirit can easily be eradicated by its master, thus placing it in a deeply vulnerable position. Zhang Xian's voice sounded as spiritual energy began gathering in the area, forming beautiful, miniature flowers that slowly drift to the ground. The weapons that were previously heading toward Zhang Xian suddenly halted upon hearing those words. Seeing the weapons that had been charging full momentum a moment ago abruptly coming to a halt, Zhang Jiuxiao panicked. Driving his Jinqi furiously, he loudly bellowed, "Kill him!" Those weapons had already acknowledged him as their master, so there was no reason for them to disobey him. Yet, to abruptly halt in the midst of their assault, floating in midair silently, were his weapons listening to Zhang Xian's lecture as well? Wasn't the impartation of heavens will supposed to only be effective on cultivators? When did the impartation of heavens will become effective on weapons as well? Zhang Jiuxiao was completely dazed in this moment. Heart of a teacher, enlightenment devoid of discrimination, Pavilion Master Go muttered in disbelief. His body began trembling uncontrollably. A normal master teacher could cause a cultivator's jinqi to circulate in accordance to the content of their lecture through their impartation of heaven's will, thus convincing the cultivator to become their student. But to make even weapons listen obediently to his impartation of heaven's will, it could only mean that Zhang Xian had already comprehended the heart of a teacher. Those who had comprehended that ability could affect not only cultivators with their impartation of heaven's will, even ordinary humans, animals, or even weapons would be influenced as well. Seeing that none of his weapons were moving, the desperate Zhang Jiuxiao furiously bellowed, "Attack him! I said, attack him!" Who? But before he could finish speaking, the Saint Intermediate Tier's sword that had flown forth previously suddenly retreated toward him. Voila! A burst of sword qi suddenly struck Zhang Jiuxiao, plastering him back onto the wall. Shut up, can't you just let me listen to this lesson properly? To be prattling on over there so noisily, don't you realize that you are being an annoyance? You think I dare not pummel you? One of Zhang Jiuxiao's swords harumphed coldly before turning its attention back to Zhang Xian. It floated silently in the air, reminiscent of an obedient little student before its teacher. From time to time, it would even tilt itself forward slightly, as if indicating that it had understood the content of the lecture. Chapter 1182, The Legendary Palm Art That Descends from the Heavens. Zhang Jiuxiao burst into tears. For real. As an offspring of the Zhang clan, he had seen plenty of formidable geniuses in his time, and he knew how fearsome they could be. Knowing that there was a natural gap between him and them, even if he was utterly crushed by their hands, he would at least still be able to accept it and swiftly recover from the mental trauma. But, to be pummeled and told to shut up by his own sword. How was he supposed to accept something like that? His heart felt so pained that he could hardly breathe. Was that still his weapon? It was just a mere lecture, did it really have to betray him over something like that? Compelled by his confusion, Zhang Jiuxiao released the seal on his hearing to hear what kind of amazing knowledge Zhang Xian was lecturing about to make his sword willingly betray him. In just a few moments after releasing his hearing, his jinqi had already begun moving according to the formula that the other party was explaining. Zhang Jiuxiao was astounded by what he was hearing. This. What a formidable cultivation technique. It's on par with the top-notch techniques of the Zhang clan. Is it really fine for him to impart such a formidable technique so easily? As an offspring of the Zhang clan, he had seen much more than ordinary cultivators, so it was inevitable that he would have a sharp eye for cultivation techniques and the sort. He could tell that there was no fluff in the other party's lecture at all. Every single word was directed toward the crux of cultivation, words of wisdom in the truest sense. Just by assimilating the content of the lecture, he would be able to cultivate much easier and smoother than before. From that alone, it was already superior to most cultivation techniques out there. As Zhang Jiuxiao's eyes started to glaze, he quickly bit his lips to regain his rationality. This won't do. I mustn't continue listening to his lecture, or else I will be indebted to him and become his student. While his state of mind was nothing compared to Zhang Xian's, it was still far superior to that of ordinary 7-star master teachers. On top of that, he was a significant distance away from Zhang Xian as well. Thus, despite the formidable might of the impartation of heaven's will, he was still able to force himself to retain consciousness. Forcefully suppressing his desire to continue listening to the other party's lecture, he struggled out of the wall with some difficulty while contemplating on how he could ruin the other party's lecture. Zhang Jiuxiao found that he was unable to stand up by himself after struggling for a while, and coincidentally, a lady with a millstone bottom suddenly walked over at this moment. Thus, he strenuously stretched his hand toward to the lady and said, "Come over here and help me for a moment." He knew that the other party was his loyal fan, infatuated with him to a crazed degree. Putting aside helping him up, the other party could remain excited for days just by catching a single look of him. Pa! But instead of being helped up, Zhang Jiuxiao found his face welcoming the millstone bottom instead. So, crushed by the millstone bottom, he was sent flying into the wall once more, and huge mouthfuls of blood spewed wildly from his mouth. Shut up. If I see you interrupting Zhang Shi's lecture again, I'll pummel you whenever I see you on the streets. The lady with the millstone bottom harumphed coldly before walking away. Zhang Jiuxiao. First, the betrayal of his weapon, and now, the betrayal of his most loyal fan. Just what kind of magic did Zhang Xian cast to be able to capture their hearts so utterly? Traumatized by the happenings, his mental fortitude collapsed in that instant. Unable to suppress himself any longer, his Jinqi began moving according to the formula described by Zhang Xian. At the same time, his wounded strength and aura also began recovering swiftly. The more he cultivated, the more intricate he felt the matter was, and the more glazed his eyes became. After an unknown period of time, Zhang Xian waved his hand and said, "All right, I'll be stopping the lecture here today. If you have any doubts, feel free to approach me after class to clarify them." "Yes, teacher." The 10,000 or so master teachers of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion bowed down one after another, submitting willingly to the young man before them. Even though the young man had not lectured them for too long, there was no doubt that they had benefited greatly from his lesson. Through his teachings, their cultivation would surely soar in the near future. Even Zhang Jiuxiao had bowed down together with the crowd without any hesitation. "It's over." Seeing how the crowd was reacting, Pavilion Master Go's face collapsed. In an instant, he looked as if he had aged several centuries. He had thought that with the 10,000 master teachers of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, they would at least be able to obstruct the other party. Yet, in just a single lecture, they had ended up becoming his students. If only he had known that Zhang Xian was so formidable, he would have never been so foolish as to speak up for Tianqing. "It's your turn." Just as Pavilion Master Go was feeling suffocated within, the young man's voice sounded. Raising his gaze, he saw the other party staring right at Vice Pavilion Master Tian and him. The first phase of pavilion crashing was to defeat all of the master teachers in the Master Teacher Pavilion, and currently, all of the other master teachers had become the other party's students, leaving only Wu Shi, Vice Pavilion Master Tian, and Pavilion Master Go. Considering that Wu Shi had a close relationship with the other party, there was no way he would make a move. Thus, he and Vice Pavilion Master Tian were the only ones who remained. Tossing aside all of the miscellaneous thoughts in his mind, Pavilion Master Go exhaled deeply before stepping forward. "Since everything has developed to this point, I'll be your opponent then." As he had already been humiliated, the embarrassment from having to make a move against a junior could not impede him any longer. No matter what, he was a leaving aperture realm expert. While he had yet to undergo the leaving aperture ordeal, his strength still far exceeded that of Vice Pavilion Master Tian and Wu Shi. As he made his way over toward Zhang Xian, Pavilion Master Go noticed that Vice Pavilion Master Tian seemed to be intending to join the battle as well, so he quickly shook his hand and harumphed. "Tianqing, you wait by the side and don't make a move. Even if our Master Teacher Pavilion is crashed today, we mustn't abandon our dignity." It was already embarrassing for a 7-star Master Teacher like him to make a move against a 6-star Master Teacher. If they had to go to the extent of ganging up on the ladder on top of that, they would not be able to face anyone anymore. "Yes." A cold glint flashed across Tianqing's eyes as he stepped backward and lowered his head silently. When Pavilion Master Go was standing only 10 meters away from Zhang Xian, Wu Shi secretly sent a telepathic message over to the latter. "Principal Zhang, even though Pavilion Master Go hasn't undergone the leaving aperture ordeal yet, he still wields power far exceeding mine. You must be careful when facing him." He had taken into account everything that had happened over the past few days, and as unwilling he was to see Zhang Xian crash the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, he knew that the latter was justified in doing so. Furthermore, considering the latter's identity, nothing could be allowed to happen to him. Zhang Xian nodded. The leaving aperture realm could be further divided into quasi-leaving aperture realm and true leaving aperture realm. Basically, quasi-leaving aperture referred to those who had already gained the ability to draw their primordial spirit out of their bodies but had yet to undergo the lightning ordeal. Without undergoing the lightning ordeal, no matter how powerful one's primordial spirit was, its strength would still be limited. It was like how Zhang Xian could have never wielded such astounding power at just Saint Tu Dan if he had not undergone the Saint Ascension ordeal back then. Hall Master Xing and Pavilion Master Go were both at quasi-leaving aperture realm. As powerful as they were, there was still a gap between them and true leaving aperture realm primary stage experts. Nevertheless, their strength was still plenty fearsome. They were already capable of adeptly controlling their environment and wielding it to their advantage, making it difficult for any opponent whose cultivation was beneath them to match them. Make your move. Facing the strongest opponent that he had encountered other than Luo Qingxin, a hint of graveness surfaced in Zhang Xian's eyes. Hula. Without wasting his breath on words, Pavilion Master Go raised his hand and thrust it forward forcefully. His palm strike did not seem to be particularly powerful, but through the mystical capabilities of his primordial spirit, the space surrounding his palm strike became extremely viscous, making it difficult to dodge his attack. Leaving aperture realm cultivators are capable of controlling space to some degree, allowing them to hinder the movements of their enemies. If I had not learned ancient sage Qiu Wu's heavenly art of dimension unravel, I would have been bound by that before I could do anything, Zhang Xian remarked internally as he felt the changes in his surroundings. As expected of the strongest fighting power within the Qingyuan Empire. Even without undergoing the lightning ordeal, their strength was still not something that a Saint Tu Dan cultivator like Zhang Xian could withstand. Retreat. Without any hesitation, Zhang Xian stepped forcefully against the ground and leaped backward. As long as Pavilion Master Go had not reached true leaving aperture realm, the space that he could control would be severely limited. If Zhang Xian could get out of the other party's range, the other party's technique would not be able to faze him. Do you think that you will be able to escape? Sneering coldly, Pavilion Master Go raised his hand and closed it forcefully. In the following moment, it felt as if the space within the room had abruptly caved in, and the momentum of Zhang Xian's retreat was immediately stalled. Battle technique, Dominion of the Roaring Tiger. Even though it was only an ordinary Saint low-tier battle technique, the strength that it displayed was comparable to a Saint intermediate-tier battle technique in Pavilion Master Go's hands. Tzzzzzzzzzz. A thin sheet of Jinqi revolved relentlessly in the surroundings, causing the air to become even more viscous than before. Dragged back by that thin sheet of Jinqi, Zhang Xian's speed plummeted once more. With his strength, he should have been able to cover tens of meters within a single breath. Yet, under the effects of Pavilion Master Go's multiple means, he could not even retreat half a meter within the same period of time. As expected of the head of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion. Zhang Xian remarked as he decisively halted his retreat. The following instant, his body blurred slightly before abruptly vanishing from the spot. What? Seeing the other party vanish right before him, Pavilion Master Go narrowed his eyes in astonishment. Before he could react, a figure suddenly materialized in front of him, and a palm flew forcefully toward his chest. Zhang Xian had decisively abandoned his retreat, choosing to use the momentum of the Dominion of the Roaring Tiger to charge toward him instead. However, this was nothing to worry about. After all, the gap between them was simply so huge that it could not be bridged by tactics alone. Not a bad maneuver at all. If it had been anyone else, it just might have worked. However, it's a pity that you are going up against a leaving aperture realm cultivator. Sneering coldly, a brilliant ray of light burst from Pavilion Master Go's glabella before a primordial spirit drifted out into the air. The next moment, Zhang Xian felt as if his entire body had been bound. Even though his palm was just half a meter away from the other party, it was as if there was a world standing in between that half a meter. No matter how he pushed forward, his palm just would not advance any further. Is this the strength of a leaving aperture realm expert? Zhang Xian clenched his fists tightly together. Even though he had learned the heavenly art of dimension unravel, granting him some control over space, it was still insufficient for him to go head-to-head against an opponent as powerful as Pavilion Master Go. It looks like this is my limit. Zhang Xian sighed deeply. Upon gaining a rough gauge of how powerful he was at the moment, he decided to get serious. In an instant, all the acupoints throughout his body burst open, and an overwhelming surge of Jinqi burst forth. The Jinqi swiftly morphed into thousands of palms superimposed upon one another before falling upon Pavilion Master Go. 1,000 hands rely palm. How can this technique be so powerful? It seems like he has made some alterations to it, or else it couldn't possibly wield such power. Recognizing the move that Zhang Xian was executing, the master teachers in the area were stunned. The 1,000 hands rely palm was a Saint intermediate tier battle technique. While it allowed one to strike hundreds of palms consecutively, each individual palm strike was not that powerful due to the dispersion of energy. Against a stronger opponent, it would only be effective as a distraction. However, this limitation did not seem to apply to Zhang Xian at all. Every single palm within his thousands of palms was filled with devastating might that threatened to smash apart everything within its way. Even a primordial spirit realm pinnacle expert would have been smashed into minced meat before it. Just how much Jinqi must he have to execute so many palms simultaneously? A master teacher within the crowd exclaimed in shock. Those words left the master teachers widening their eyes in shock as they swiftly made calculations in their minds. The unbelievable conclusion that they arrived at caused them to gulp a mouthful of saliva down their hoarse throats. Indeed. To be able to execute thousands of palms with each palm strike wielding such devastating might, even if they were to learn this battle technique as well, there was no way that they would have enough Jinqi to successfully execute it. Even if they sapped every last droplet of Jinqi from their bodies, they would not even be able to execute a quarter of the battle technique. Sila. Under the relentless waves of devastating palm strikes, the seals that Pavilion Master Go had cast over the surrounding space were swiftly torn into shreds. Following which, with a powerful leap, Zhang Xian rose high into the air before abruptly turning 180 degrees and diving downward quickly accelerating. At the same time, he pulled his palm backward and thrust it forward powerfully. Boom! An immense palm print formed in front of Zhang Xian's hand. This. Could it be? Upon seeing this sight, Zhang Jiuxiao's face paled in shock as he turned to a nearby master teacher and asked anxiously, "Do you remember the legendary palm art that descends from the heavens?" "I don't," replied the master teacher curtly. Zhang Jiuxiao. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.